10 games, 10 draws, as the two best chess players in the world fought another high-level, exciting battle to keep their fans wondering who will finally land a knockout punch. With only 2 games left, one mistake could jeopardize the entire match. It's Fabi versus Magnus. Game 11 starts right now.
Hello and welcome back to our World Championship coverage of Carlsen and Caruana. We are in game 11 out of 12, and we see here the wounded world champion on his face, not on the board. So far, both players unnicked, as we see the reigning king, Magnus Carlsen, versus Fabiano Caruana, the first American challenger for the undisputed crown since Bobby Fischer, and he hails from St. Louis, where we are currently bringing you our coverage of the World Championship, and we're in round 11, Yaz. Yeah. Any predictions?
Well, I'm predicting more great chess. What can I say? During the free day yesterday, I got a chance to revisit Game 10 and play over some of the variations. And it was only in that free day that I got the chance to really appreciate how well and how accurate both players were in Game 10. New world's record, 10 games, 10 draws to start a World Championship match. We've got 2 games left, Jennifer. It's just been a slugfest. They're just fighting themselves to a standstill. It's really hard to say it any other way.
Just incredible chess, yes. To me, it really feels like they're hitting the limits of the human brain,
right,
without assistance, and that's why this match is so historic to me. In addition to seeing Fabi take his shot at the crown, but let's take a look at the remaining schedule, Yaz. We've got just 2 games left to go, including today's fight where Magnus will get a crack with the white pieces.
Exactly.
E4, C4, D4. We're going to find out very soon, or none of the above. Meanwhile, Fabiano...
A rest day on Sunday tomorrow.
That's right.
And then Championship Monday, we think.
Championship Monday with Fabi with the white pieces. If needed, tie breaks on November 28th. That's Wednesday. That will be Rapid and Blitz. And we take a look at our format, the classical games, which we have 2 more. We have a luxurious 3-part time control, no draw offers before Black's 30th, and a prize fund of over €1,000,000.
Exactly, as well as all the fame and fortune that comes with being the world chess champion.
The most valuable thing of all, no doubt.
Exactly.
And right now, we are still awaiting a champion in London, but we do have a new women's world champion just crowned in Khanty-Mansiysk. Congratulations to Zhu Wenjun of China, and Maurice has the details.
Yes, well, while the whole world waits to see who wins between Fabiano and Magnus, the women have decided their contest in a thrilling affair in a tiebreak, and the winner is the reigning world champion and still women's world champion, Zhu Wenjun of China. Congratulations to her. She wins $60,000 for winning this event. She did need to go past Rapid to 10+10, and it was there that she was able to overcome her opponent with 2 victories to take the title. This is her 2nd title this year, as she won this 64-player knockout tournament and also a match against her countrywoman Tang Zhangyi in May. So kudos to her. She must be very relieved, as all of China will be hailing her on her epic return. And now this round, as we look at the history of World Chess Championship classical matches, only twice has the loser of the penultimate game bounced back to win the next one. And that was from 1978, Karpov playing Korchnoi in Baguio, and 1987, Kasparov versus Karpov in Seville. trying to win after losing is not easy, and it's only happened twice. So that really underlines the importance of today's contest. Well, Game 11 will indeed be epic. We will be following it all closely as the game is underway.
Thank you, Maurice, and our congratulations as well to Zhu and Jun for a terrific victory. Wow, the ladies really did regale us.
Great
Today,
games.
we have a Petrov on our board. The players have really zoomed right into it.
I
This
was
is
totally
only
right
the
about
second.
this in the
In the rehearsals, yeah, I suggested a Petrov, and you corrected me with the English. Okay, so in the previous time that Magnus was white in this World Championship match, he played the Petrov. He played the really lame knight d3.
I've never seen you hate a move so much. Yes. I think
Despicable.
It's that blocking your own d-pawn and your own development.
Yeah.
And the bishop.
GMs
It's like
are
a
not-
twofer.
Yeah, GMs just don't do that, like self-immolate our pieces. Knight d3 was played, but in a return to the Singfield Cup 2018, between these two players, Magnus and Fabiano Castles, I believe we have seen a couple of moves since this time. Just a second, I apologize. I'm just going to have to refresh my
I'm
board.
happy about this opening for Team Fabi. For commentators, a little bit as well, because I think we do have castling in the opposite sides already.
Which
but
is
I'm also
terrific.
happy because I feel like this is something that Team Fabi has spent a lot of time on.
Oh, no question about it.
Because Magnus is known to play this line, and of course he needs to make sure he's bolstered. So
Yes.
I felt like Maggie got so much more out of c4 than he did out of any other move. So I was kind of most scared of that myself.
The English? Well,
Yeah.
Essentially, in the Grandmaster chess, when your opponent has white, you're only afraid of really two moves, e4 and d4. If you've got a terrific defense for e4, it's fantastic. It's really, really, really great. Then you only really worry about d4 and vice versa. We know that Fabiano plays the Russian defense, or the Petrov, really, really well. And when Magnus essayed the Petrov for the first time, he nearly lost a game, let's be frank. Today, he's basically saying, I'm putting my World Championship title on the fact that I'll be able to do something good with the white pieces against your vaunted Petrov. Let's see what he's prepared. So far, it's all very, very standard. As you say, white has castled on opposite sides. He's king on the queen side, black's king on the king side. Normally speaking, white is trying to get an offense going on the king side with his pawns, whereas black tries to do the same thing with his pawns on the queen side. Bishop d3. I'm not 100% sure this is the exact position, but I do remember in the Singfield Cup, Magnus essayed an early bishop to c4.
In a game that he got that nice edge with. And
Yeah,
ended up-
the famous shush game, right?
Yeah, wow.
Which actually boomeranged against him, and that game was a draw. He didn't go for that. Instead, he put his bishop on d3, protecting against any potential of knight e4. And again, white is usually thinking in terms of how can I expand on the king side and get my pawns
It's
moving.
so funny that this line became popular, because I remember, like, I started playing this line at some point because I
As
just
white?
wanted, yeah, I just wanted something a little bit more like slash and burn. But
Right.
I never could have dreamed that it would become the most popular line for the elite grandmasters, because it looks a little bit like thin.
Right.
Yeah, you get this attack that's great if you're, not at the 2,800 level.
Right.
But I figured at that level, like, come on, is this really enough to justify having the doubled pawns and the
Right.
and considering like the very, very solid nature of black's position?
Sure.
But
you
apparently
wanted
the answer is yes, because it's become so popular.
Well, you want an imbalance, and you want to get yourself into a situation where you've got a very clear idea. You want to attack your opponent's king, and if you're willing to risk having that happen to you, black wants to attack his opponent's king. Then guess what? You found a perfect opening for both yourselves. This line of the Petrov. Now, from black's point of view, he's got to get some activity going. c5, this move strikes me as a very decent move, or a step, if you will, in the right direction. First of all, your black limits any opportunities that white may have of redeploying his knight on f3 to d4 to f5. Secondly, by putting up this pawn on c5, he's kind of creating an opportunity for a wedgy kind of attack with b5, b4.
White salad.
Yeah, and a hook there on the c3 square. So then after this move, I think, are we up to date? Was c5 the last move, Maurice?
That's the last move I have.
Okay.
Now, I might have to beg to differ with you guys
Sure.
about this opening, being happy with the opening. First of all, Magnus prepared it deeply. I mean,
Exactly.
There's no question Magnus prepared it. It's not about how well Fabiano has played
Right.
in history. Magnus has prepared this extremely deeply. He knew he was going to see a Petrov at some point. Now he's seen it twice. And there's no question that his handlers have studied everything they need to study as deeply as possible. Now, second note, Fabiano did not replay the game that they played in St. Louis, here where we stand, earlier this year. He actually ducked the line because after bishop e3, he castled in this position he castled in this game, but in this one back in the Singfield Cup, he played knight c6. So a completely different treatment of this opening. He played knight c6. The game went bishop c4. This is the famous shush game, as we call it. Bishop c4 castles, and then queen d2, bishop f5, castles queenside, queen d7. He seemed to have gotten what looked like a decent position for him, always sooner or later being able to play a move like d5 or competing with this bishop. We weren't sure what it was doing there, but after a couple of moves, we suddenly saw this position arise, and bishop g4, knight h2, bishop takes, queen takes, and it, again, looked like black should be okay, no weaknesses, but we saw the expansion on this side. Bishop c1, that was an excellent move. Queen c6, and then f4, and all of a sudden, the stuff started hitting the fan as we saw this move, g4 land, and slowly but surely, Fabi started getting pushed off the board and should have lost that game if Magnus had found the right moves. So I'm a bit more concerned than you guys are about this position for black.
Right.
Let's just be real. We're talking about the world champion here, and this is his last white. He's not going into the guy's best defense with just so, let me give you an easy draw or something. He's got something deeply prepared, and that's why Fabi ducked, in my opinion, and prepared something totally different with this idea of c5. This is a line that has been seen before, quite a few times, in fact. There's no consensus as how white should play. White has multiple moves to come out of this position. But here we see Magnus thinking for the first time in the game, giving an extended think, as he may have prepared that other line we looked at, may have gone in depth there, looked at some other things, but he couldn't know that this is exactly what Fabiano had prepared. So back for the Fabi fans, they might be happy that Fabi has prepared a new wrinkle, something different, something to throw Magnus off and not be deep in the wells of his preparation.
It's funny, that game that you showed from the Singfield Cup reminds me of like Magnus at top form until he didn't win it. But
Right.
like, God, that game was, just watching that game, I was blown away. I thought that was vintage Magnus, kind of like game one of this match.
Right.
Where it's just, it's kind of unbelievable how well he plays. You just have a regular position and the guy seems to be making good moves and all of a sudden it's dead.
Right.
I love that game.
Yeah, the beauty of his conception of like literally every move being a link in this perfect chain. And then it was just so like in both instances, the first game of this match and in the Singfield Cup, he makes this beautiful, beautiful portrait, and then he forgets to finish it with by signing his name with a flourish and two draws.
As a huge Fabi fan, but as a lover of chess, it's almost painful to watch, especially in the Singfield
being
Cup.
it spoiled.
Yeah.
Watching those games being spoiled in the fashion they were. Now, having said that, Maurice, you said that there was this different approach. Instead of knight c6 and knight e5 as played in the 2018 Singfield Cup here in St. Louis, we've seen an early knight b8 to d7 to f6. What's the theory? Has anybody made a novelty according to our database?
No, not so far.
Yeah.
And in fact, this move c5 is a bit of an unusual move in the database. And I'm looking at the play. I'm looking at when it was first played, played by Ledger, a player not high ranked on the list, not somebody we all know.
Right.
But then picked up by one Alexander Kostenyuk. who, as we know, is former women's world champion from Russia. Now, she played this line 4 times, but not with great success, this move, c5. And it was also picked up at some point in 2016 by one Pentalahari Krishna against Karyakin, and in that game, Black lost. And I'm looking at the statistics at the higher levels. At the lower levels, Black's doing fine. But when you look at the top level play, even Garry was on the side, on the white side against Motilev. When you start looking at the higher level play, Black has not fared that well in this line. But the good news is there's no real consensus. I'm seeing 6 different moves here White has tried. Rook E1, H3, C4, H4 a couple of times. Rook E1 is the most popular with 7 moves. Knight G5 once, King B1. There's a multiplicity of ideas here that White has attempted. Rook H E1 being the most standard one. Looks like it's like a natural developing move, but no big agreement. So if Magnus has not prepared this, which it looks like he hasn't. I mean, looking back at the live board, Magnus is still thinking. No, actually,
he played Rook
he
H
did
E1.
play the main move, Rook H E1, and Bishop E6 coming back very quickly. So we are definitely in Fabi's preparation. How deep into Magnus's preparation with great clarity is he? That is the question, as obviously Fabi, this information advantage goes for Fabi this time because Magnus did not know he was going to play this line. Still, it's been good for White.
If I can make a shout out to Anish Giri, one of our Grand Chess Tour players of the past. How did Anish approach the position, Maurice did? Was he one of the players who played Rook on H1 to E1? I have a very, very high respect for Anish's approach.
As Maurice is looking that up, talking about Super Grandmasters, guess who made the first move today of Carlsen and Caruana?
It looks like Sergey, doesn't it?
That is that looks like that must be Sergey Karyakin,
You're
of
right.
course.
Yeah.
Yes, Sergey Karyakin did make the first move
How
for
ironic.
Baggy. I guess that's why he played 1E4.
Right.
And wow, what a throwback! I gotta say, for the superstitious among us, you can't help but feel like that's a advantage Maggie.
Yeah, that is E4.
Throwing back to the World Championship from 2 years ago.
Of course.
Luckily, I don't believe in superstition.
No.
Not unless they favor me.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we have
Just a little bias there. On your side.
Rook on H1 to E1, Bishop E6, and back to you, Maurice. How did Anish approach the position? Was he one of the Rook H1 E1 enthusiasts?
He was, and this is the line, actually.
Okay,
so
perfect.
Rook H E1, Bishop E6. He played Bishop G5 against Motilev. This was in the World Cup, by the way, 2017 in the second round. So very important event. Queen A5 played, A3, Rook F E8, trade on F6, followed by Knight G5, a quick trade on G5. And they got this position, and you look at it, it looks very sterile, right? It just doesn't look like that much happening in the position. It did continue, though, for another almost 30 moves. With this move, G4, looking to get his hook on that side. Queen D8 stopping the move, Bishop to E2, and Queen G5 trading off queens. And this did not produce an advantage for White. So this position has been seen. Anish played this way. Not much. Maybe this is how Fabi plans to play as well. He's certainly seen the game. There's no question about that.
Right.
What is he prepared, or I should say, what is Magnus counter-prepared, having seen a position like this, or did he look at it deeply? That's what we're going to find out soon.
Well, it's been a while.
Please.
Speaking of Sergey Karyakin, it's been a little while, but I remember reading in New in Chess that he actually said he wanted Fabi to win. And the reason was not because he's a great friend of Fabi's, but he wants to see Magnus play the candidates.
Come on back and join your colleagues.
Exactly. See how you do. When you might be the best player, but does that makes you the favorite technically, but it doesn't make you the favorite against the field. And that's what really blew me away about you and June. Congratulations again. defending her title. I mean, boy, defending her title among 63 hopefuls,
Yes.
including over 10 players who were within 100 rating points from her.
I know. It's so hard.
It's funny because she was the favorite, but of course also a huge underdog versus the field.
Exactly. Oh, no. I think one of the biggest challenge, if not the biggest challenge, in the world of chess today is actually qualifying from the candidates to become the challenger. It is just so hard, a field of 8 elite players, and there can only be one winner. So I think whoever wins that event is absolutely beating the odds, just as Zhu Wenjun did in her World Championship.
She did get some favorable pairings, that said, because she was the #1 seed. So
Okay.
not belittling her accomplishment in any way, but it is nice to be the #1 seed. Because
Absolutely.
She got paired down heavily in the first few rounds, and she's the only player in the field. Well, maybe, no, I'm wrong about that. I think Humphrey Canero was another one who broke 2,600, who has actually surpassed that 2,600 marker.
Right.
Her high being something like 2,604, I think
Right.
it is. So she was better than everybody else. I mean, that is the case. But again, as you guys said, to prove it, to keep your nerves, to lose in the match against Katerina Lagno, to lose that game 2, and then come back and win with black in game 4.
A must-win win.
Must-win game, but to take it to a tiebreak, to then handle her business in the tiebreak. And it was really more of a collapse on Lagno's part in the tiebreak, as well as she could have kept the ball rolling, but just made 2 really key mistakes. But when it gets to that point, the champions rise and show their toughness, their determination, their guts, their fortitude, and all important, their steely nerves. And she was able to show that, and that is why she's still the champion.
Right. Maurice, a quick question for you about this exact game position. After the move rook on h1 to e1, as we've seen this response bishop on g5 to e6. Fair enough, developing a piece. We're all about development. We love development. Attacking the pawn on a2. One of the drawbacks I'm looking at White's position is this knight on f3, as good as it is, it's on its starting blocks and it's not moving. It's not moving to d4 because of that move c5. It's not moving to e5 due to the pawn on d6. But I start to be attracted to the move knight g5, attacking the bishop. On the one hand, if you play like Bobby Fischer and capture this pawn on a2, after the move b2, b3, you might have your regrets, like Bobby did, that the bishop is going to get trapped. Now, that's not the end of the end of the variation, because there's still a5 to consider and the potential for piece sacrifice. The other idea of bishop d5, funnily enough, you can get your bishop trapped another way by something of this nature, where you may regret that you opened up the king side after f3. So I'm just thinking, has knight g5 been essayed?
It has not. And if you continue with your line there,
Which was
bishop
the-
takes a2.
Bishop takes
Greedy,
a2.
greedy.
Yes, let's go.
And then b3.
Yes.
Well, take a look. That bishop on e7 is laying in wait. If it
Okay.
can get to a3, it's mate. So we just need to clear the pawns out of the way. So start with c4 with tempo.
I see.
And now you capture back with the bishop, obviously. And now d5 with
I
tempo.
see.
And suddenly bishop a3, mate is being threatened.
Put that on the board, yeah.
And
I have.
black.
no, the actual mate.
Oh, you mean
Jen wants to see the checkmate
Okay.
happen in the game. Well, that's not going to
Team
happen.
Fabi.
Yeah,
King
that's
Fabi,
definitely
King
not gonna happen.
b1, and King b2 are not playable. Ooh, okay.
So that's just one way. A5 was also possible according to the engines, but this way it looks pretty compelling that move,
Ooh.
bishop takes a2, is just fine, and you'll be scrambling to try to prove why you gave this pawn back.
Well, then that Fischer-Spassky game, the queens were already off the board, right?
Yeah, and just trying. I mean, it does look. I mean, it is greedy to grab this pawn on a2.
Especially with a5 and a4 coming, rescuing my own bishop. You play.
Yeah, I've been kind of experimenting.
But
here.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
I understand that b3 does potentially run into the
So
c4.
you're starting with c4.
I was thinking about
But what
c4.
if I just play a5 right away?
Wild. What about b5? I mean,
Yeah.
doesn't this just change the nature? You'd have to really be analyzing this position to want to enter here if you were white. You have
Exactly.
to be sure of yourself.
Exactly.
Which is interesting. One thing that apparently Sergei Karyakin has been doing some official commentary. And
really?
He says he's actually critiquing Magnus's opening choices. He says playing a Sicilian with black and then playing something boring with white, it's not very connected. But this position that you're looking at right now doesn't look too boring.
No. I'm really picking up the gauntlet with the move knight g5. No question about it.
But what does he mean when he's saying that? Because these lines looking really exciting. I guess some of the time these lines fizzle out pretty quickly with the takes on c3. Like, yes, occasionally you get these great attacks.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get a little bit of sizzle and fizzle.
Is he referring to this game, if I may jump in? I don't think he's referring to this specific
I
game.
think he is.
Yeah.
No, I think he is.
I think he is.
He's saying that this is boring?
Well,
Yeah.
no, maybe it was earlier when you just saw the very early moves.
Maybe.
The very early moves.
But in general, I think in general he's right, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
Right? In general, white has been really tepid, but part of that has been black controlling the way the games have gone.
Sure.
Right? So white has tried some interesting lines in D4, but Fabi keeps coming up with novelty after novelty, and Magnus keeps going, no, I'm not going into that stuff.
Exactly.
And backing away from them. So Magnus has been very solid with the white pieces, playing C4 a couple of times, playing D4 a couple of times as well, and now he's over to E4 for his second time.
Right.
But it's true people criticize this opening for that, which does seem a little strange, especially to amateurs watching, because it's like, what do you want? Maggie is castling queenside. Isn't that exciting?
Right.
So kind of break down why people sometimes criticize. And for instance, even Garry one time criticized, it was Naka playing the white side of this, saying that this is insipid. Are they just saying it's not high quality enough to get an edge?
Oh, I don't know how to answer that because it's one of the major lines played by all the elite players of the world.
In the last couple years.
So if you want to say it's an insipid line, well, you're basically insulting all the elite players who play this, including, by the way, Sergei Karyakin.
Who won his
also
game? Who played it and won? He played it and won against Harry Krishna.
Right.
So Maurice is right.
Exact
Perhaps
line.
he was talking about the overall.
But there is a very funny thing. I remember Boris Gelfand. Boris playing the black side of the Najdorf, and just incredibly double-edged, super sharp games. And then whenever he was white, he was playing D4, C4, G3, Bishop G2, Knight F3. Really, really tepid Catalans. Just really easy, nothing going on with white. But when he was black, man, he's just throwing caution
Throwing
to the wind.
patties.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah.
Tornado chess of the black
So
side.
maybe that's what's at stake here. But that has a lot to do not with the opening, but with Fabi's choice. He's playing the Petrov. So I don't
That's
see
right.
that as being Maggie at fault. But
I'm
so
not
you
faulting any of
disagree?
the players.
You don't think that you think that this game really does have potential to be a slugfest, just like the Thanksgiving game.
No question about it. And if you're playing against a Petrov, how do you get, a wide open game? Do you get it by playing D4 and Bishop D3 and going into the main variations with C4? I don't know how you get anything other than a balanced game. Here, at least with the players castling on opposite sides, I think you have a good chance of getting something very sharp.
Now, by the way, that Garry comment was way later in the game.
Yeah,
that was
okay.
like a Magnus game where Hikaru played this with the white side and just didn't get anything. And it was
Okay.
even kind of on the lesser side.
And
And
that
since
can
then, it's
also
gotten a
sometimes
lot more
happen.
popular.
Yeah, absolutely. Maurice, over to you.
Yes, and when we go to that Karyakin Harry Krishna game, this is 3 games that we've seen at the high level in this line coming out of our database. Obviously, there's games that get played that don't make the database, but the ones that have, we have 3 high-level games. And one was the Giri Motilev game we talked about. One was Harika versus Kostenyuk in this position. And now also the game that we're going to look at now, Karyakin versus Harry Krishna, Pentala Harry Krishna, who's top 2,700 player. And the move Bishop G5 was essayed in all 3 of those games. And after this move, Harry Krishna played the move 8-6 against Karyakin. That's just like a red flag to a bull because Karyakin instantly captured on 8-6. I don't know how instant it was, but it happened on the next move. He just ripped off this pawn on 8-6, saying, go ahead, take my piece if you will. And obviously, if you capture right now, then queen takes on 8-6, and this attack is playing itself. Knight G5, rook E6, sacrifices. Your king is going to get shredded in this position. After bishop e6, he played the move c4, looking to try to distract his bishop, and he said, go ahead, take it if you want to. Bishop takes e7, kersplat, ripping open this king side, and after c takes on d3, queen g5, and it was all bleeding in this position as white's attack crashed through very easily after this move. Queen h6, queen g5 check. We saw this trade, and when it was all said and done, it was too much material for white. Rook takes d6, king f8, and h4, and then king takes on c2. He had a rook and 6 pawns for the bishop and knight. I think that's a little too much to be trying to fight against, and he went on to win this game easily. Now, this game has been looked at very deeply, so you say, why is Fabi going into this line? Bishop g5 looks pretty dangerous. Well, we saw the Montelev game, but also there's some deep analysis and annotation in this position from the game. The move d5 is principled here in this position. d5 going right ahead, and the argument that queen f4 looks dangerous, like you're putting heavy pressure, but put the queen on h4, then there's going to be mating ideas. If you play h6, there's still the sacrificial possibilities, but queen b6 is apparently the way to sidestep this line. And now if queen h4, this h6, excuse me, queen h4, h6, bishop takes h6, g takes h6, queen takes, in this line the move knight to e4. Oh, I must be down a move, I'm sorry. Queen takes h6. I got a whole bunch of analysis going on here in this moment, and it looks like
rook e8.
Rook e8. Forgive me, guys, because the analysis goes so deep in this position. But this rook to e8, keeping the possibility of playing knight e4 and blocking this mating idea.
Wow.
There goes my screen.
Yeah.
But this is the very, very sharp line being given as the analysis that white will have to face if he plays bishop g5, d5 coming. Now, I'm trying to get back to this game. Instead, he's played an alternate move, and it looks like we've gone into nothing sharp at all. I mean, talk about snooze fest. He did play, I have moves, and the move I have is bishop e6, king b1, queen a5, c4, queen d2, bishop takes d2. Is this enough?
Well, this reminds me then of how in the game in the Sinkfield Cup, Nagy also had an early queen trade, and at first we thought it wasn't a whole lot, but then he just
then
played
he got the king side attack.
By the way, to correct myself, I was reviewing that game that for some reason I had remembered the Maggie Nakamura game from the very first Sinkfield Cup as a Petrov. It was actually a Berlin in the line where you avoid the queen trade.
That's right, rook e1,
yes.
Berlin. Yeah,
right, which people were trying
it
for a while.
It feels like it could have come from a Petrov, but that's actually a Berlin move order.
Yeah, exactly, and that was the one that Kasparov was like, yeah, maybe this isn't enough. Although that too became like very popular for a little while, and I think people have kind of abandoned it now because it wasn't giving much.
Yeah, well, it's like the Berlin endgame started scaring people too as they realized, well, black's not without resources, so they started playing this very tepid line with rook e1, just as you were mentioning. And although, as you're right, it was the very first Sinkfield Cup, 2013.
That was the one that you annotated for the coffee table book that we recreated.
Exactly.
Yes.
And the point there was, though, that in 2013, people forget, while Magnus won the tournament, it was actually Nakamura who had the terrific start. I believe he actually scored 2.5 out of 3. And he needed a draw or a win against Magnus, and he wins the tournament. That's why he also played it very conservatively, that rook e1 variation. But okay, now we have
and
this trade of queens. So what's going on here, Maurice? Just a second.
Wait, the queens are back on Maurice's
board.
I
know. He's trying to make it exciting. He doesn't want to see no ending.
I don't want to see that game at all. No, I wanted to correct the variation I just gave. The move indeed is knight to e4 in this position. We had suggested rook e8. Knight e4 is in fact the right move here, and the sacrifice begins. Rook takes on e4, takes on e4 back. Let me get that there. Bishop takes e4. Looks like a withering attack, but now the long-term point of queen b6 reveals itself as suddenly bishop f5 shows up, counter defending this position, hitting the queen, hitting the bishop. You can get your piece, you can get your piece with queen b6, a b6, bishop f5, rook a2, and we get this position where the assessment is unclear by the annotators. Now, this is sharp stuff. This is not what Magnus wants to do, but it looks more interesting than what they have now, which looks very much like it could lead towards a draw. And Magnus was asked, the players, in fact, were asked, well, how would you solve the problem of a draw? Well, maybe we should try what they're going to do in Norway chess, in Altibox Norway, later in next year when they play this tournament. The point being that if there's a draw, you play an Armageddon game immediately after. This is what the players had to say.
Norway chess will try to use some new rules next year. For example, a draw will go to an Armageddon. Do you think that's a good idea?
Not after this one, that's for sure.
but okay, for example, in a World Championship match, would it be suitable?
I don't know. I think a better idea is probably to prolong the match. Then there will be less at stake in each game, and probably more room for experiment.
So you would actually prefer to have more games in the match?
Yeah.
Okay. How many?
16, 18.
16, 18. Okay. Fabiano, do you any comments on the Armageddon thing?
I really don't think that we should be playing Armageddon games after.
Okay, good. Next question. Stefan.
There goes Fabi with the logic. Yeah.
I missed it a little bit. It was like 16. I heard that Magnus, wants 16 to 18 games, a longer match. I didn't hear what Fabi.
Oh, Fabi just said he absolutely doesn't want to play Armageddon. Although it's kind of interesting. I wonder if Fabi, it doesn't look like Fabi actually addressed the longer match, because I think maybe he would like that. I mean, why not? That way he gets to play more of these classical games. And it does kind of feel like every time with White he's getting more and more. I don't get it. I don't think that Magnus is trying to draw this position and trying to draw out the match. Maybe taking a little bit fewer risks, but he must be terrified of Fabi's White preparation. So I can't imagine he's thrilled about the prospect of going into the last round, needing a draw to get to the tiebreak.
Yeah, the match is very confounding. And what are the players thinking? I just know that after these 10 consecutive draws, the players are really getting more and more risk averse because they just can't afford to lose. I mean, the match is over suddenly. Anybody loses today's game is a huge dog. That's it. The match is over. So if I'm White, am I happy about the move C3, C4, forcing an ending where,
White's a little bit better.
Slightly better.
Tiny.
I take no risk. I mean, it's not heroic. We want to see the world champion defending his title, grandly and so on. I mean, if these remaining 2 games are both drawn, Magnus is going to be criticized as a player who's played 24 world championship match games, won 1 and lost 1.
Yeah, congratulations on your critics, but I won the match, both matches. If the title is in his pocket, he'll take the criticism.
True.
That is true, though. I mean, we're going to say legacy-wise, you played 24 games and only won once.
Yeah.
And you lost once. You broke even in 2 matches, and only the tiebreak rules are helping you because you're such a fantastic rapid and blitz player. And he'll say, rules are rules.
Yeah.
Rules are
maybe
rules.
that-
You gave it to me, and that's what I'm going to take.
Yeah.
I'll take advantage of it because
Yeah.
that's my skill set. And don't you know, I'm playing against really good players. as
Yeah,
well.
that's true, too.
So it's not like I just can beat them. I'm trying, but it's not so easy to beat them.
Right.
So Fabi has shown himself to be equal to Magnus in classical chess. That we've seen. I mean,
Yep.
their ratings are deadlocked. They could play
Virtually.
16, 18, 24 games. I mean, I don't see the difference so far.
I think
Right.
that I don't think it damages his legacy. It's just part of his legacy, this ruthless practicality that the more games that he plays, the more moves that he plays, the better chance he has to win.
Mm-hmm.
That's his philosophy. If I get to
And
a
if that
tiebreak, I get to
carries
play.
over to the tiebreak,
I get my 16-game match after all.
Right.
And of course, Magnus is very well known for being the guy whose move quality does not reduce as much as most players do in rapid, right?
Right, rapid
Still a
and
very
blitz.
high average move quality.
He's extraordinarily consistent. Yeah.
So that, Garry Kasparov, who, by the way, is going to be coming on the show.
Oh, Gary's joining us later. Yeah.
Garry always likes to talk in my great predecessors and in interviews about what each player represents in terms of the history of the world and the history of chess. And for Magnus is ruthless practicality, pragmatism. I find it quite interesting, and perhaps the legacy is that he wins with the least amount of risk, right, as you said.
Which is fine.
Right, which is a different philosophy.
Yeah, it's
That
not
sounds,
heroic.
I'm sorry, that sounds very much like Petrosian's already has that one in his pocket.
But mathematical risk, yeah.
Is Magnus now trying to steal Petrosian's fire? I take no chances at all and just win with the least amount of risk.
Or
I don't
interpreting-
think that's even true. A
Not
true
even the
description
least-
of him.
Not the least amount of risk, but like very mathematical interpretation, like looking at the rules and seeing what mathematically, if I ran this millions of times, like a simulation, I'm going to run this match millions of times, what gives me the best chances to win?
That'll be my strategic approach.
Exactly. And I feel like, Magnus has been known to play a little poker, and he's just obviously an all-around brilliant guy. I kind of like that, what he had, maybe not by a game-by-game early queen trade, not as thrilling to the commentators, but that approach to the game and what it means for the history of the world, I find really interesting.
The history of the world.
Wow,
Maurice, jump right in.
I'm sorry.
I mean, the history of the world's at stake here, buddy.
Hey, that's what Garry said. He said that these guys are representing the culture of less risk.
And you know what?
With their
It's a great
Risk
story.
aversion,
It's
yeah.
a great story. I'm not one to take offense easily, but if I were in Magnus' shoes, I would definitely take offense at that statement. Like, I think that strategically speaking, at the very end of the match, as the tiebreak gets closer,
Right.
if you haven't landed a punch, then you start thinking, okay, so where are my advantages? But only as the tiebreak gets closer.
Right.
Before then, you're trying to win games, and that's an easier thing to do than to take a chance in a tiebreak
And he's
or
been
to try to
trying,
prolong. And he has been
especially with
trying.
black.
I think he's been trying with both colors. He's been out prepared when he has white.
Well, he's better.
Right.
As it turns
He's had-
out, his best chance was with black.
He's
and
had
won.
better. He may have
Yeah.
had better chances with black, but he's been out prepared in that he hasn't been able to land a punch. He's like trying and trying and trying. He can't land anywhere because Fabi keeps coming up with opening novelties that he's not another one. I can't go into that. So the fact that he has avoided the main preparation, he's been stung before doing it. Don't forget Game 3 of the return match against Anand when he got hit right out of the opening, didn't even have a chance to play moves. It didn't matter that he was the better player. It didn't matter that he dominated the match in the end. The reality is he went into a line, the opening moves, and that's it. Bye. Preparation. See you later, Mr. World Champion. He doesn't want to see that happen again. He knows what that's like. So he avoids the main moves, and he tries to outplay his opponents in these technical positions. But Garry has said it. The opponents have caught up. They've caught on and caught up. They're not letting him win the way he always used to. And that is now a need for him to switch strategies and say, what do I need to do now to start beating these guys who used to be bread and butter in positions that I would get? This is one of them, by the way. This is one of those old school positions where people would say, Magnus, you don't have a lot here. Give Magnus this position in 2012, 2013, 2014. Milk the cow, baby. He's winning.
But why
this.
would Magnus be insulted by what I said? I was saying that his legacy isn't impaired by potentially winning in tiebreaks.
Yeah, but saying he's practical, saying he's calculating out
I
how
think
he can
saying
kind
his
of
legacy
the way it
is-
sounds to me
is
like
way
he's
more
kind of
insulting.
sneaking in there. He's, I sneak in and just do what I have to do to win this match. It doesn't quite sound right. It sounds like what it sounds like. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm overstating the insulted part, but it sounds like you're saying that he is not really trying so hard in the classical games, which he has been immensely trying.
Oh, he's definitely
I think
trying.
right now he's just not getting it done, and it's time
I
to
thought it
finish
was
up.
actually defending him because I was saying that I don't think it mars his legacy as a world champion, which is something that is representing all of history.
Yeah, but the reason why this ruthless practicality, as opposed to the great fighter that he is, that's where I'm wondering, how he'd feel about it, because calling him practical is, is like a little bit of a, you don't really want to fight when it gets going, do you? You'd rather just go into safe
No,
waters.
I'm just saying he's good at math and and good at rules,
Yeah.
which is something that a lot of chess players aren't good at. Like if you want to have a chess player troubleshoot a tournament or tell you how to structure a tournament, you usually don't want to ask them because
Right.
sometimes their ideas are just self-biased. Whereas I really feel like Magnus is like an exception in that like any rules you give him, he's going to look for the way to maximize it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that you're both right, actually. I think that he is a great fighter, and he does understand the rules and the risks, and he properly judges when he should go all out or when he should just play for a tiebreak.
But will it backfire here? Yeah, because he is white in the last game. Is Fabi? And when it was against Karyakin, it was very different because Maggie was the one with white in the last round,
and he could dictate the opening and everything.
And this goes back to Magnus's ruthless practicality that he chose to be black in the last round because of
the drawing of the lots at the start.
A mathematical factor that he thought was more relevant. That there was a chance the match would end in 11 games, and then why not have the extra white?
Precisely.
But it could end up biting him. Instead, he's going to be against Caruana, and not only Caruana, but Team Caruana.
Okay.
That's turned out to be phenomenal. But what about this position, Yaz? What do you think? All aside of previous Magnus, former Magnus, what about you? You're playing against another top 10 player in the world at your peak.
Yeah.
How do you feel about your own chances as white?
I prefer white. It's that simple.
But are you disappointed with the opening outcome, or do you think it's about par for the course?
Yeah, white's better, but how much?
Yeah. The weird thing, Jen, this has been a very strange match for me to understand. I still don't think I fully get it. I haven't completely processed. Because in all of the World Championship matches that I've ever studied, white was the dictator. Having white was a very, very, very big edge. And this is one of those strange matches where neither player was doing anything with the white pieces. So right now, and considering what the match has been like, I'd have to say this is better than par for the course for white. I mean, it's
better. Compared to this match.
This match. Yeah, because white has been getting nothing to disadvantage.
What do you mean?
Okay.
I've been going from disadvantage.
Not both whites. Not both whites. Obviously, Fabi has gotten advantages with white in both his last two whites.
That's right.
I guess he
As
for Maggie,
the English. But I'm saying
But for Magnus.
Magnus, when he played the Petrov, got a disadvantage.
When Fabiano played the Petrov.
Against with D4,
With
he got
knight
a
D3.
small disadvantage, at least one in the first game, right? Well, I thought some people were saying that. At least he was surprised. He was put on the back
his
foot.
C4.
He was playing. Wait a minute, just a second. Hold on, time out. Magnus, the first time he was white, got into a rook and pawn endgame, a pawn down.
Right.
In the
right.
first Petrov.
Okay,
Game
so
two.
he was at a disadvantage with the white pieces, almost right out from the opening. Wasn't that the famous "I'm going to grovel for a draw" comment from?
No, that was
Bishop
another.
E2,
The fact that we don't know what
D4.
game that means.
No, I know exactly what game it was.
Okay,
It was the D4 game. The Queen's Gambit declined when he
Right.
played Bishop E2 against Rook D8. Is when he said he was going to
Exactly, and he got worse. Now,
was game
having
two.
said that, let's talk about this game in particular. First of all, there's a backward pawn on the D6 square, right? So that's something I might have to be able to nibble on, attacking this backward pawn. So you're likely to liquidate with D6, D5, then I'm going to take, and then I'm going to have the C4 square to work with. I can get to my knight to E5 and maybe my knight to C4. Secondly, I don't see any real opportunities of A6 and B5 coming on the queen side. Maybe, like the Sinkfield 2018 game, I'll be able to do something on the king side myself with ideas like knight H4 to F5. Maybe I can pop over here. Or I can play for H3 and G4 in a king side attack based upon getting my pawns to F4 and so on. So I'm saying that from white's point of view, I find it easier to play white. I see more opportunity in the position for white than I do black.
Right, that
And
makes a lot of sense.
I'm gonna be happy with that outcome. I mean, it's small. I'm not rocking the world. This isn't moving the hearts and minds of the American public. But it's not that bad.
And what about, how do you compare this to the Sinkfield Cup game in a similar opening?
I completely misjudged that Sinkfield Cup game because at a certain moment I thought, hey, this is okay. Fabiano is doing fine, and I didn't think the end game was really dangerous for him. And then suddenly it was like my jaw, fell to the table, and I went, oh my God.
And even without
It's
Fabi
really,
playing badly.
he didn't play any bad moves, but suddenly his game was really on the ropes.
And Maurice already showed us that game earlier in the broadcast, but I just think that if you now that you know what you know, of course you'd say that that edge was bigger,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
But the feeling that you have now compared to the feeling that you had when you saw that game, kind of similar.
Precisely. It is very,
So-
very, very similar. And again, I do see H3G4. If Black isn't careful, he can end up in a kind of a planless middle game. By the way, do we have just trying to get an insight into the opening, anything about the times?
It seems like Maggie has thought
On the clocks,
is
I mean.
sinking into a deep think after the move H6. Speaking of H6, Hari Krishna himself has tweeted about his game, saying that he blundered with H6 in the game that
And lost quickly
Maurice was
against
showing,
Sergey, yes.
and had a few more accurate moves than he would have drawn.
Okay.
So he trying to defend his honors. Everyone's looking at that game now.
The game just was in the opening.
Right.
I mean, clearly H6 was a mistake.
Howler, yeah.
But with a few more accurate moves, it was like move 12 maybe. What are we talking about? The game was a foot.
Maybe he meant draw-ish.
Draw.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so help us here, Maurice.
Yeah, what do you think?
Why is Magnus going into such a deep thing when he has some very simple choices? Everything
It looks like
from
knight h4, by the way.
from knight h4 to h2, h3. He did go knight
It
h4.
seems like as soon as he has asked, why is he going into a deep thing? He decided to make a move.
And was that a good choice, Maurice?
A very interesting moment in the game. This move knight h4, not simple at all, as it initiates some interesting tactics to look at. For example, right now the move knight h4 on the board. He had to calculate this move knight to g4.
Attacking both.
Attacking the f pawn, the h pawn, maybe a little bit delicate, but also the knight on h4. So this position is, did he prepare this position, or is he confident that he's just fine and maybe better here? The move knight h4 can be met, the move knight g4 can be met by knight to g6.
Attacking the bishop.
Attacking
and
the rook and the bishop. You capture here. Then rook takes on e6 now, hitting the g-pawn and hitting the bishop on e7. So he must have looked at this line very carefully and decided that this was going to be okay for him. They're just saying triple zeros here, just fine for Black. So
because of knight takes f2.
A very sharp knight takes f2, hitting both of these guys, of course. Rook to e1 being given as the move. Knight takes d3, c takes d3, and once again, one of these pawns, one of these buttons is going to drop. Black can opt for his d6 pawn going after rook takes. Yes, there's a small compromise in Black's position, but this bishop looks wonderful. Kind of interesting role reversal, as Black was the one who had given up that d5 square earlier by playing c5. Now we see that White's the one with the backward pawn on d3. This time with the bishop controlling, not much here for White at all. So knight g4, a very sharp possibility to try to liquidate down into what looks like a fairly even endgame.
Wow. Okay. So
How do
knight
you handle knight
h4,
g4?
knight g4 is the most tactically challenging move. And the problem, though, is that this move, well, in fact, White is threatening both knight g6, Jen, as Maurice has pointed out, as well as knight f5. And if White just wins the two bishops and Black doesn't get any compensation for it, well, Black's not going to be happy. So is knight g4, this double-edged move, the best response? Do you see
Exciting
another?
lines also, by the way.
Please.
Knight g4. The other move here with your knight under attack, because knight g6 really looks like it's liquidating down.
Right.
Way to keep the fire in the position is to play the move knight to f5.
Exactly.
Now this is hitting the bishop and the pawn. The move bishop f6, calmly sidestepping the piece. Obviously knight takes is hit by knight takes on f2. But now White gets to play the move rook to e2, guarding. You're not interested in this pawn on h2, as I mentioned. The move f3, and you'll wonder why your knight stuck its hand in the cookie jar. But rook f d8, simply guarding the pawn and preparing the move d5 to answer that main issue. Remember, your knight can always go back to e5 as well, so no worries for this knight and its possibilities. This position is slight advantage according to the engines for White, but I'm looking at it, I don't see any real advantage at all. If I had White, I wouldn't be happy playing this position with the white pieces. The engineer gives, in fact, the move B3 as the best move to be met by D5. And how can you possibly give white a real edge here? This just looks like black is happy to see the position turn to this kind of situation. So knight G4 looks like a real reply that Magnus, I mean, what can he possibly have here?
Is
Wow,
Fabi
good
still
point.
not only that, is Fabi still in his preparation, Yaz? What do you think?
This is scary, the fact that the preparation has gotten so good, so intense. The problem is with the assistant of computers, you can just, it's Vichy's technique, has been to analyze a position and just leave his computer on overnight. The bottom line to your answer to your question is yes. The player's preparation has gone so deep, they've literally gone from openings to endings as well. So
It's possible that knight G4 is still in
by far, it might even be likely.
likely over 50.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that after H7, H6, up to this point, Fabi seems to have played pretty quickly, up to and including the move H6. The move knight H4 isn't a hard move to see because
No.
it's got to be one of the key candidates. You know, you're
Yeah.
bringing your knight to this square F5. And at first, when you see the move knight H4, you kind of go, oh no, I'm under danger because knight F5, knight G6 puts me on my back foot, and you've got Rustam Kazimjanov sitting next to you and saying, no, everything's fine. Because you see, you have this really cool answer, knight G4. Oh, I do? Great.
Yeah,
And then they
right.
and then they feed each other. They keep going, and they say, okay, well, doesn't knight G6 win? And they get themselves excited, and they go right into an ending.
Even if he doesn't remember all the details, what really struck me was something that Vichy Anand said, is that if you know that the evaluation is good for black,
You'll figure it out at the board.
then like it gives you some confidence that you're obviously calculating knight G4.
Exactly.
But knowing that the position is good for black, no problems, makes your
By the
calculations
way,
a little more confident.
Yes.
You know, this is not a position that they looked at in depth, in my opinion, like real depth.
Right.
Maybe if they stumble upon looking at it.
Yes.
But when the guy plays Queen A5, well, you play Queen A5 and the guy plays C4, and you look at it, you go, if he wants to play like this, then fine.
Yeah.
I'll trade on D2. I'll play H6. Let's take a little bit more stroll down this position right here, and maybe we'll look at a few ideas. Is there anything dangerous here? And you know, you might find your knight H4. The engine certainly suggests it, so you'll look at it, and you'll find a few moves. And I think this will be an eminently forgettable line. This is what I mean is easy for Fabi to simply forget how the line goes, but know that he's fine. Because if he gets here, dude, if you can't play this position, you have no business being the world champion. Because not only is knight G4 possible after knight H4, but he could even just relax. I mean, he could let this knight land on this square. And what exactly do you have? D5 is still being threatened with effect in this position. What is, you know, when you see it, when you just look at it, you go, I should be okay here. You shouldn't be beating me over the head. Yeah. You only got one little weakness to point at, and you're not going to get it for long because I'm going to play D5 and solve this problem. But maybe put a rook on D8 first, play D5. This is an easy one for him to solve. So I really don't think that he studied this one that closely because it just doesn't feel like the testo, the busto of the line that you're playing. Not the sharpest way to play. Certainly looked at it, but I could see him forgetting what to do, right? Like you said, I exactly agree with you, Jen. I could see him going, how does this go again? Because you got nothing here, dude. I must be fine. I must be fine here.
I'm still with the testo and the busto. Just a second. Hold on, Maurice. Hold on.
I'm holding.
Okay, I'll go F3 with you.
Oh, yeah, you liking this position.
I'm
Bishop
liking
C3,
it.
F3.
I'm going
party
G4.
time.
I'm going H4.
Okay,
You get to go D5.
I don't believe you. I'm going to go
big,
D5.
Big hairy deal. I take on D5.
Okay.
Knight takes D5. So wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I can post up with my bishop on E4. I can even post up on my bishop on B5. Okay, now I only see knight b4 as a potential issue, and it's okay. Let me play. I hate to waste an entire move on this, but okay, A3.
Oh,
A3. I want to go G4 on my next turn. Okay. I mean, I agree. The structure 3-3, 3-3 easy draw, right? But hey, wait a minute. Aren't I playing G4?
No,
my
no, no,
next
no.
turn?
It didn't say easy draw.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we did say easy draw. But my major point was, if he can't play this as black and do what he's got to do, then I mean, come on. You should be able to handle your business in a position where you've got no real weaknesses. The guy's got something to play for. It's not like he's
Right.
not going to play. He's
Yeah.
going to play.
Okay.
But you should be able to handle your business.
Yeah, well,
Fair enough.
Yaz takes whites there, though.
Fair enough. By the way,
We've got-
on the other side of this break, we've got a great guest.
That's right. We've got Garry Kasparov returning to the show. We are so grateful for that. Thanksgiving weekend is a long one, and we've got a lot to be
And-
grateful for. But we're going to leave you with a fireside chat
That's the
about
one I was talking.
the Anand Carlsen match. But don't turn off the computer monitor because Garry will be back in just a few minutes.
Exactly.
We jump into the modern age of
Yeah.
world championships. We say the modern age as though, the
Right.
2000 was the ancient history.
Right.
It was ancient history. But now we talk about the world championship with Anand, first of all, showing how great a champion he is, holding the title down, winning
Right.
it under various formats.
Exactly.
Which nobody else has ever done. I
Right.
mean, if it's a FIDE knockout, if it's matches.
Candidates.
You name it. Anand has proven that he is a true champion time and time and time again.
Agreed.
And then suddenly comes the rise of a kid from Norway.
Right. Another force of nature.
And who would have thought you're going to go to Norway
No.
to go find supreme chess talent?
No. I mean, it's the needle in the haystack, right? So, Toiletgate, for all of its fanciful dress, did one thing that was very, very important for our modern age, Maurice, and that was it did unify the world of chess. And when the rise of Vichy in Mexico, where he wins the world title with the tournament format, the double round robin. Then in Bonn, he wins a match, just a heads-up match, against Vladimir Kramnik. And he's the guy. He's the real guy.
Dominates the match.
And then finally, he now becomes a world champion, but a different kind of world champion than the world champions we want and we like. We want dominant world champions. We want world champions who win matches, who win tournaments, who win blitz, who win everything. And Vichy wasn't that world champion. Vichy became the guy who concentrated on winning the $1 million matches. He gets second, third.
In tournaments, that
In
is.
tournaments. And he says, look, bring me my challenger and bring me a $1 million world championship match title. And while he was playing his match thing and winning the matches, there was a kid from Norway who became #1 in the world while he wasn't watching so much. Magnus Carlsen.
Who didn't surprise
Wow.
people so much, given that when he was 12 or 13,
He was
became
already a
he became a
force.
grandmaster at 13, and he also played Karpov and beat Karpov head-to-head. It was in a
Right.
rapid
Yeah.
game in, I think it was Iceland, not Iceland. Maybe it was
It could have been
Iceland.
Iceland. Almost beat Garry, too.
And he almost beat Garry in that
Yeah.
game. And it was so cute watching this
That's
little
right.
kid playing Gary. Gary's all intense like this. Oh my
Right,
God.
right.
And Magnus is like, what's happening on the other board?
Yeah, where's
Just-
my teddy bear, too? You know,
He's a
what?
relaxed little teenager, and he's a monster. And it's clear, and Gary saw it, and everybody saw it, that he was coming, and he was going to be coming on strong.
Right.
And he proved it when in 2010 he becomes #1
Right.
in the world, the
Right.
youngest #1 ever.
Yeah. And for me, I don't say Magnus is a child of the computer. No, nothing like that. I say thanks to the internet. This is very, very important. You know, we now have access to all of the files together. Before, it was the Soviets had, their databases, and they're locked away in the Moscow Central Chess Club archives, and they're for Soviet players only. You and I, man, with no matter any kind of money, we couldn't get in there. Now, the internet was the great equalizer. There was Magnus coming from a country, Norway, that has no proud history of chess. None. They had tournaments, they had Norwegian championships, but come on, it was a virtual wasteland compared to the talent that Magnus Carlsen came from. I mean, here suddenly, you know, this tiny, tiny country, relatively speaking in population, 5 million persons, great dominant force in skiing. Skiing competitions, I'm betting on the Norwegian guy. In chess competitions, I'm betting on the Russian kid, Magnus Carlsen.
Appears, and he also had so much talent. His memory is phenomenal. He can remember everything. It seems he looked at games you could just reference, and he's right there.
Scary.
It just shows how chess talent grows. So then he gets to play against Anand.
Right.
And you and I saw something special here in St. Louis.
That's right.
Just before he goes to play Anand.
We got electrocuted.
The Singfield Cup.
Yep.
He's playing. If he draws a game against Levon Aronian,
he's the winner.
He wins the tournament, $70K in his pocket.
Right.
Aronian offers him a draw.
That's right.
All he has to do is say yes, and it's over. And he doesn't even have a better position.
No.
He's in fact down a pawn at the time.
Right.
He says, you know what? I don't think I can lose this position.
I'd like to
Let's
play.
have a little fun and play. And you are not like what?
Right.
You win the whole thing, all the
Right.
money. That showed something special about this champion.
Absolutely, 100%. That was an electrocuting moment for both of us. And I think I haven't fully recovered from it, if ever, quite frankly, because the whole point in sporting competition is one thing: victory. You want to win. That's it. And if you have to win ugly, you win ugly. But it's about victory. And here victory was being offered. And this young man, Magnus Carlsen, said, no, I want to play for a win.
Great confidence, great
It's
self-confidence.
unbelievable.
And we expected him to take that into the World Championship match. But the first 3 games in that match against Anand a couple months later, he was shaky.
No question.
Real shaky. But then he calmed down and he steamrolled.
Exactly. He reverted to this incredible combination of abilities that he has at the board, this positional grinding, tactical awareness, just great tactical awareness. This ability to, look into your head and say, you're not completely comfortable over here, are you? Well, let me just give you a little sore point as a reminder over there. And you don't like it when this happens over here. So I'm going to ramp it up over here. And I'm going to put you on the defensive.
I mean, the guy really...
And he wins without a loss.
He also showed that any position he was willing to play to the very end. That incredible desire to play every game, any percent he could squeeze out of the position he would play for. And then he wins this match in dominating style. He jumps into a pool with all his clothes on to celebrate. And I think everybody was joyous that we had this young champion who was clearly the #1 player in the world as well. He defends this match not by the same margin of dominance against the same Anand, but still showed that the true champion had arrived, and also the highest rated player of all time. The only question for him is, can he keep it up and be the greatest player ever? Only time will tell.
welcome back to Today in Chess World Championship Edition as we are in the heat of Game 11 of Carlsen Caruana, but so different than Game 10, yeah. This one, minimalistic, whereas the other one was as wild as a chess game could possibly be.
Right.
That said, before we went to break, it seemed like there was a little bit of dissent between you and Maurice. Maurice thought nada for Magnus. You were feeling, hey, this is something that could be nurseable.
Exactly.
After a few more moves, what's your take? As we didn't see knight g4.
Nada.
Agreeing with me, brother man.
I got to catch up with Maurice. I mean, he was like about 5 steps ahead of me. After the move knight h4, we saw the move rook e8. We had been looking primarily at knight g4, but rook e8 was Fabi's choice. And after rook e8 came knight g6. But this very efficient move, knight g4, takes, rook e2, defending the pawn on f2. And suddenly, and boringly, knight e5 is about to produce a bishops of opposite color middle game position.
Middle game, end game.
End game, late middle game. Yeah. A bishops of opposite color position. And nada.
If you lose this, you don't belong in anybody's World Championship book.
This is by far
drawn.
the most equal, shutting everything down early game that we've seen in this match. A match that has been all draws. Well, this is maybe the easiest one, Maurice.
Man,
Maybe the easiest.
The easiest. Definitely the easiest. And if I had paid 100 euros on my Saturday to come watch this match, and this is what showed up, I'd be peeved. I'm sorry.
You're not happy.
No way in the world. Now, of course, that, again, doesn't mean that White wasn't trying.
Right.
But this position, I mean, there's nothing. There's just nothing here.
Check it out, Jen. This pawn on b3 is hanging. This bishop
Pawn on c4.
Pardon me. The bishop on d3 is attacked. The pawn on c4 is hanging. Black is going to either capture on d3, producing, like we say, a bishops of opposite color position. The simplest, let me just show that on the board. b3, oops, knight takes d3, takes. This is the bishops of opposite color position.
Absolute symmetry in terms of the pawn structure.
For Black to now play this and this, and easy draw. And what can you really do if you play... let me put another move on the board. Bishop f4. Is that a reasonable move? I'm not sure if it is or isn't. I take on d3. If you take with a rook, I think I can move my rook again. And again, this pawn on c4 is hanging, source of counterplay. So I'm seeing an easy draw. I don't see what Magnus can do to avoid that. Was knight g6 necessary though, Maurice?
Knight f5 was the move we were looking at, where you said said it's a little bit of energy, and we were fighting.
Let's get it going.
We were trying to prove something there. That made sense. But knight g6.
Did the supercomputer think it was anything? It was shutting me down after knight f5 as well.
I didn't reflect on I didn't look at it at that time.
Right.
So I won't be able to tell you.
But knight g6
we've moved on. But certainly knight g6
got us nowhere.
Nothing. 0-0. And we have bishop f4 on the board. Bishop f4 followed by knight takes on d3. We're going to see one of those end games. Rook d3 has been played, and the rook d7.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is definitely a draw in the offing. They still have to make 10 more moves to make us suffer for 10 more moves from this position.
No draw offers.
Because no draw offer
30.
or without a repetition before move 30. So we will see some moves, but there is nothing here. And I can guarantee you that the journalists will have some annoying and maybe stupid questions, Yaz, for Magnus after this game. Why did you just toss away your last white? Will be one of them. Right. As if he did it on purpose. But that's going to be the potentially hostile reception he gets in the press conference, as people were looking for a game and expecting something exciting in Game 11. To have 11 straight draws to begin a World Championship match is now completely shattering the record of 8 straight with Anand and Kasparov, and kind of making you wonder about giving a bad taste anyway as far as this match is concerned. With some games that have been really, really thrilling, but for Game 11 for the tension to go down in a way seems a little bit unfair to the match.
It is that strange mixture of Game 10, and there was some really fantastic
Game
moments.
10 was
I would love to
magical.
review
Yeah.
some of those moments, just as we're going to review some of the World Championship games from the women's competition. But that mixture of great chess followed by some pretty boring, hard-fought boring draws. But today's game really
Today was not a hard fought. The other draws that we had, the draws that we had before, you were mentioning, Jen, you were trying to remember a game that was equal in tedium to this one. The other draws, there were draws that were just like, oh, he had a little something, oh, he let it go, and it equalized out, right?
Yeah, like Game 9.
There were draws like that.
Right.
There were draws that were just like, whoa, it's exciting as ever. Not a little something. Wait, Game 9 was Game 9.
Magnus had an edge,
Right?
But it fizzled out very quickly after one mistake.
After one mistake,
Yeah.
so
Right.
that was a little different. He had something. He was trying for something. He messed it up.
Right.
This one is you got just about nothing. It looks small and small. You made a quick, knight g6. Oh, exciting. You got less than nothing, and now you got 0, and we're on move 20, and we know it's a draw.
Right.
And he knows it's a draw, and Fabi knows it's a draw, and everybody else is just, thanks for making our Saturday short. At least here in the U.S. Maybe it's an early dinner for those watching in Europe, but this one is certainly one of those that the fans are not going to be happy about.
No, and again, just comparing the draws, I'm still thinking, I believe it was Game 10, where Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura said, well, this game will not be a draw. So we have been seeing, exciting.
Famous last words.
Yeah, exactly. Famous last words indeed. And we do have the situation on the board. Bishops of opposite color. Keep in mind that in this exact position, if you do end up trading on d6, don't forget there is I'm not going to take this pawn on c4 and allow rook. Oh, actually I can, because I just wanted to say that there is a back rank issue here. Oops. So be careful.
It'd be better to take the pawn and hope he plays rook e7.
Then and allow it.
But we have our special guest.
Yes, we do.
13th world champion Garry Kasparov has returned to the show to tell us about what he thinks about this game. Garry, your thoughts on today's battle?
Definitely not the most exciting one. But, the move bishop f4 was played already, yes?
Yes.
Why not bishop c3? I thought Magnus would try this chance.
Gary, you say that we say the move bishop f4 has been played already.
And knight d3, rook d3, yeah.
Yeah, and what did you
He's
recommend?
saying bishop c3 instead.
Bishop c3 instead.
I mean, I assume you take on d3, yes?
Yes.
Well, the engine, sorry to interrupt, but the engine's giving f6 as the best move.
F7,
Okay.
F6 as the best move.
Now, because my idea was if you take on d3,
Yes.
I take with a rook,
Yes.
and after rook d7,
Yes.
I play rook g3.
Aha. And
At least I
now-
create a threat, That's it.
and
You're
now
trying to make it exciting, Gary. We understand.
And after g6, I thought that maybe it's white is slightly better. You take on e6. You take on e6. Again, it's a game. F takes, rook takes, king f7. I think rook f6 check is better. Rook g7 is winning the rook. Yeah, of course, it's winning the rook. Yeah, so you have to go king h7, and then I take my pawn on e6, and I think it's maybe king h7 is better. Yes, but
Rook h6,
still,
rook h6 wins the pawn, doesn't it?
It's something that, yes, white suddenly white has very strong initiative.
Well, Gary, in no time you came on the show, and in 30 seconds, from a stone dry desert, you created some chaos. So, our congratulations.
No,
We needed
I
a little excitement, and you produced it in the first 10 seconds. Thank you for that, because it's been a dry desert.
Yeah, but I think yes. I heard Maurice saying bishop f6, and that's killing my only idea.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. That's the game. Game is over. Draw.
Right.
Yes.
Gary, disappointed about today's choice by Magnus. He did play a Petrov, which is great, but he played a variant of the Petrov that didn't seem to give him much.
But it seems that Magnus struggled from the very beginning to find something against Petrov. That's why he was switching just to D4, C4. And I don't think he has any big ideas in stock. So it's a natural choice. You can criticize him as much as you want, but it's a World Championship match. And he wants to win the match to retain his title. And he's clearly favorite in Rapid. So why he should take any risk now? Because at the end of the day, it's about who wins. I mean, do you remember that Brazil-Italy in the World Cup Soccer 1994 was a scoreless draw, 0-0 and penalty shootouts? Mm-hmm. But it stands as Brazil's victory, one of their 5 victories, as the victory against Italians in 1970, 4-1. Yeah, at the end of the day, people will forget, what was the score. They will remember who won the match. Exactly. So that's why I'm here just to. I would love to see more exciting chess. I would like to see Naidorf instead of Petrov. But at the end of the day, it's about winning. It's a World Championship match. We don't expect people just to play experiments to please the public, because the public doesn't care if you play great chess and lost.
That's right, Garry. But what about from Magnus's point of view? Are you a little bit afraid on his behalf, considering that the last 2 times he had black, Fabi really got a big edge?
No, as we discussed during the last game. So it's an very interesting psychological moment. Will Fabi burn all the bridges in Game 12, considering that he is underdog in Rapid, or he will still remember that again, draw is a draw, and maybe he will not take too much risk. So I don't know. Definitely there will be a big fight. I don't believe that Fabi will let it go, but how far he's willing to go, it's his choice.
Do you think Magnus is going to stick with the Sicilian or switch to double king pawn?
I mean, it's an interesting choice, because my experience tells me that when you have one more game to go, you probably better go with a surprise opening. But at the same time, Magnus knows what Fabi is going to play against Sveshnikov. So he may decide that he would rather stick with what worked for him, though in the last 2 games he was in great danger.
Let's take a look at the current position, although we may not want to, but there is still some life in this position. We will go back to, where was it? The move back here. Bishop f4, knight d3, rook d3, rook d7, rook d6. We saw trades, rook d8, and then we saw the move rook to d2, bishop c4, king c1, b6, and bishop f4. And this is where we are. So this is the updated position as we speak with bishop f4. And it is tricky for him to trade on d2 right now, because those queenside pawns will come under attack.
All on dark squares.
So they're all on dark squares. So a little bit of life. It turns out trading rooks is not the best idea. Rook e8 is the best idea in this position. Garry, you said that nobody will remember that he drew all those games, but you remember that Brazil drew in 1994.
How many people do remember? That's again. It's in history books. You have the winners and losers.
Right. I mean, years from now. But we live in the immediate age, like instant gratification with Twitter and Facebook, and people wondering about following a World Championship match. Will this hamper the next following of a World Championship match? If people say, well, all you chess players do is just draw, and nobody wins, will that affect 2020?
Yes, I don't understand. It's maybe, again, certain corrections are needed. I don't like the idea of extending the length of the match. I think it's just in the modern days, talking about 16, 18 games is probably not the best idea. But people want to know who is the best chess player in the world. They want to know who is the world champion. So I still believe, though. I mean, when I play chess, I always wanted to play great, exciting attacking chess. But at the end of the day, the public wants to know who is the best. It's more about sport rather than about art. So that's why. People will still be following the match between 2 best players, no matter what format it is. Because, if we have 11 games, this is 11th game, assume it's a draw. So there are a few very interesting games in the match. I could pick up 4 or 5 games where just, it was quite interesting to watch them. And also, don't forget, in chess played at such high level, to win the game, it's not enough to play, very good chess. You have your opponent to make a mistake, quite a serious mistake. And I have to say that both players, they avoided really big mistakes in this match. There were some, mistakes, especially game 1. But, when you look at the average quality of their moves, it's pretty high. And when they're quite good in defending and just finding sort of the right moves, even under such serious pressure, it's very hard to win. I mean, remember game 10? I mean, I think for almost 10 moves, they found the best ideas for both sides. So I'm not with those who are now just blasting these players for not being aggressive enough. Because it's again, it's a world championship match, and the average quality is of the game is pretty high, average quality.
Gary, do you think that it would be a good idea, given that you're one of the proponents of the universal rating system, to maybe add something else as part of the match, like a rapid portion of the match, maybe even in the middle of the match, 2 rapid games, let's say, and have that count, and maybe after game 4 you do a couple of rapid games, and after game 8 you do a couple of rapid games. Something that maybe accounts for less, or something to mix up this format that, of course, we've seen as the classical game has been maintained over all these years. But you do have the tiebreak now, which is a new part of it at the very end, and how that affects things. You think there should be something to possibly enliven the format?
Yeah, but it's a bit odd, just to install tiebreak in the middle of the match. It's like, It
wouldn't be a tiebreak. It would be an actual counting game.
But it's like, you're going back to soccer, and in the middle of the match, so after the first half, you start penalty shootouts and then go back. Look, I think we should stick with the original format, because at the end of the day, we'll have plenty of excitement in rapid chess. Or if the winner is not decided, then we go to blitz. So it's at the end of the day, they still have to play much risk, and there will be bloodshed in rapid or blitz. So why should we try to sacrifice the quality? Because quality is pretty good, that's very important. We want also quality, not only mistakes. We want players just to show what they're best, and not just to make blunders, and for all bunch of amateurs now equipped by engines laughing loud on the internet.
Yeah, no, Gary, I understand you completely. As a purist, as a lover of chess, I love the classical World Championship match, and the content is really great, and the play is on an extraordinary high level. I think that Maurice's questions are more or less designed to express the worry that sponsors could be having, like those chess pundits that don't know enough about chess are just going to criticize and say, all you guys do is play perfect games and you never make blunders, and we're going to want to see some mistakes. That's why we want to see blitz and rapid and mix it up, and give us a reason why we should be spending millions of dollars for a World Championship match where you produce 12 draws. So he's kind of preempting some criticisms that might arise. But I agree that the match is great. The content is high. They play on a really, really high level. But at the end of the day, the public's going to want to see world champion winning games, not just drawing.
Like you said, sponsors as well.
Sponsors as well. So, do you see a potential worry? Is there any reason for concern?
You raised a very, very important point. You're talking about sponsors now. Thank you very much. So You remember 30 years ago when we formed Grandmaster Association, we talked about sponsors, how to make chess more attractive,
exactly.
How to make sure that the chess players, so they remember they play for the public, not only for themselves. Yes, yeah, perfect, yes. But before we worry, we should hear sponsors worrying about it. So right now we don't have real sponsors for the World Championship match, because Agen is just it's it's a name on a paper, and the money that is being spent on the World Championship match has nothing to do with commercial sponsors. So that comes from shadow Russian sources. So let's see what happens if we have the real sponsors. Hopefully, there's the chance that in the next couple of cycles there will. Okay, I hope there will be a shift in the right direction, and we'll see what will be the reaction. I agree that if money is drying up and no one is paying, and public is frustrated, then you have to think about changes. Right. It's interesting. Let's see what happens with this match. Let's hear out what sponsors going to say, real sponsors if they come in. Let's hear what public is going to say. So I think that is the reason why chess could survive for centuries. It's the ability of our beloved game to adjust to the demands of time. So I'm quite open for any suggestions. That's why, for instance, I believe that universal rating must replace, and I say must replace, ELO, because you cannot separate classical, rapid, and blitz, or even chess 960, I think, one day. So because it's all chess, it's all played by the same rules, and you just simply adjust time control to the number of points you can gain. And since World Championship match already includes both rapid and blitz portion, and we had already several world titles being decided, several world titles, not one, several being decided in rapid and blitz. Actually, rapid, it didn't go to blitz that far as blitz. So I think it's very important that we'll try to make it all universal. So it's I even could dream about a day when every game that is played on this planet, even online, will be part of the system, providing people you can verify results by making people to justify their performance by playing not online but live chess. But it's very important that we'll create a space where amateurs from Asia, Africa, Latin America, so they could be part of the same global system as Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. But it's very important that from the top we see also changes to adjust to the demands of this massive. It's millions and millions and millions of chess fans around the world.
Exactly. Garry, you talk about changes in the system, and as I understand, there are going to be changes in the World Women's Chess Championship in the future cycle. There will be something similar to what we have in the World Championship. What did you think of that match between Lano and Zhu Wenjun? We've been discussing it on our show as well.
Look, I think that's the Chinese world champion. She's a better player, so it's when you look at the average quality of the moves. She was brought under heavy pressure because it's very difficult to defend your title. That you won in a more colloquial format in knockout, and I should applaud her achievement. I mean, she survived against all the odds in last game 4. She won with black. And then, she demonstrated that she has nerves of steel when it came to the tiebreak. So it's very important again. It's just who makes. It's not about playing great chess in the tiebreak. It's about making fewer mistakes, and she did it well.
Yes.
Yeah, no, she did it very good. Yeah.
Very fast.
By the way, we did see a trade of rooks. We did see that the rook trade did happen, which we suspected after bishop f4, rook d2, king d2. Right. A6 and A3 have been played. It's possible to pick up this C4 pawn, C5 pawn, but if you go for it, for example, let me just go right here. If you go for it in this position before A3, after A6, then black is able to gain a tempo. Sorry, bishop here. Black is able to gain a tempo with this move and then play for C4. If the king starts to march in, then this move bishop to E4 hits the C2 pawn and makes it very difficult for the king to leave.
Maurice, can I tell you that it's after bishop b6, blacks can take on A2 as well?
Yes.
No, on A2. That's why he played it. Here.
After A6, that is.
Bishop C7, he played bishop C7, he got bishop B6. It can take on A2.
That way, if B3 happens,
C4.
C4 also comes into position as well.
C4, and after B4, C3 check and block, after B4, C3 check and block.
Yes,
absolutely.
That's the easier draw.
Which is actually, Maurice, confused me because I didn't understand the move A6. I thought bishop takes A2 immediately. Fabiano, after the trade of rooks, could have just captured the pawn. Did I miss something?
It's probably the ghost of Fischer Spassky game one.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Gary. I mean, as a chess fan, Bobby Fischer getting his bishop trapped was classic.
Yeah, but there were bishops of the same color. So that's so that's why bishop was trapped on H2. And here is easy draw. Yes.
No,
take bishop.
no, wait, back up. Right.
King B2. Bishop on F4. Yes, that's a trick. That's a trick.
That is the trick. That would be the reason
on
why.
F4,
Aha, so bishop takes A2 would have gotten your hand caught in the cookie jar.
That's Spassky.
More parallels, yes.
Okay, so that's why we did see the move A6, A3. Because bishop A2 eventually is going to be a threat. Yes. Okay. And here, this looks to me to be pretty even, Steven. I don't know.
Bishop on D5 is better, no? Because then you can go to E4 if he forces your pawns forward.
You like the bishop on the D5
Well,
square.
because if you play bishop D6, if you
But
put,
bishop F1 is easier.
because
It doesn't matter F1, it doesn't matter, and then you start bringing your black king there. So this thing, I don't see what white can do.
the point here is bishop E4
Bishop E4 just
really convinces you that you've got zero. Your king
you're not
can't leave.
going to try to tickle the guy when you drop the C2 pawn. Yeah. Gary, we've seen this mixture of some really fascinating draws and today's game, which, well, let's be frank, we think of it as a boring draw. Your take overall, your take of the match, the games, what inspires you, and what do you think about the preparation of the players? Is the preparation just too good?
Yeah, Fabiano definitely was well prepared. So
Yeah.
and don't forget, what we normally see at the board is probably 10% or 20% of what has been prepared, because they always prepare for different scenarios. So you could be, at 1 point ahead. You could be trailing. So you always have to be ready to change your strategy if the situation in the match has changed, either in your favor or against you. It seems to me that Magnus had no big ideas for the match, so it's he decided, probably wisely, just not to take too much risk and just to stick with his real strengths, which is to play for sort of small edge and just keep playing and trying to use them, even minimal advantages or some hesitations of his opponents. What is now working against Magnus in this match is that Fabiano is, as we discussed it last time, is extremely stable. You could feel it. So that's even if the game changes, if something happens during the game, he's not panicking. So the game 10 was very important because it was just up and down. So that's the game, and you could feel that Fabio, even while I would argue about moves like G3 that he made, he was still not in control, but he was not losing it. So which is I think quite depressing for Magnus. So that's why you could feel that he's getting nervous. And what happened at the end of the game 10, it was just quite a troubling sign for Magnus to play King D4, and putting his game at great risk. It was still a draw, but all of a sudden, instead of having little pressure, he has to find the only moves to survive. So I think that Fabi's preparation, both psychological and chess preparation, they made Magnus feel more vulnerable.
But Gary, I'm shocked when you say Magnus came into a match with no big ideas. I mean, his team had months to prepare for. Once he found out in March he had to play against Fabi, they must have had some stuff, some bullets in the gun to be able to shoot at this guy, and yet they've shown time and time again that nothing they have thrown at him has bothered him. Is it that he may have had some ideas, but Fabi just controlled the match? Because it's hard to believe he spent all these months.
Maurice, yeah, wait a second. It's not about time you can spend on your preparation. It's also about your determination. It's about your creativity. And I think Magnus played already quite a few World Championship matches. So and he confessed himself that he's running out of steam. So he's still a phenomenal player. I give him much better odds in Rapid if it goes there. So and I think he has again good chance of surviving the last game with Black. But we already saw it in his match with Karyakin. So the trend when you look at Magnus games in the last almost let's say from 2010 when he became #1 by rating, he has been shifting from very aggressive approach in the opening to more technical side. So let's get a little bit here and there and keep building this advantage. So it's minimizing risk, and that's a style. It's very difficult to change it over a few months. So when you prepare your strategy for the match, you always think about your strengths. And I think Magnus felt uncomfortable of doing something that could contradict his modus operandi. This is in my books and lectures. I kept talking about the gravity of past success, and we are seeing now that in Magnus' case, is the gravity of past success. It has been working for so long, and now trying to change it and going back to more aggressive approach, it would make him psychologically very uncomfortable.
That's incredible, given that he's only just turning 28 at the end of this month. Doesn't it make sense? I remember Tiger Woods when he changed his swing, even though he was on top of the world, and he spent a year and a half, 2 years changing his swing, doing worse in golf tournaments. And people were saying, well, why did you bother to change your swing? I mean, you're the best in the world. And then finally when the swing kicked in, then he was even more dominant than he was before. Is it possible at the tender age of 28 to change, to maybe start being more aggressive over the next year and a half, just to change things up and maybe grow from that as a player? Or is it too late for him already?
Look, it's all about tender age. It's about number of years you are on top, and it's 8 years. It's almost a decade, and he established his style, and he has been working. I mean, let's emphasize: if it works, it's very difficult to move and do something else. You mentioned Tiger Woods, but he was. That's why he stayed on top for so long, because he could feel competition coming. This like a new challenge is coming, and he always wanted to be at the cutting edge and to be one step ahead. Magnus is trying. I don't blame him for not trying, but psychologically it's extremely difficult because it has been working, and he gets expected that he could play this match using this old technique, because at the end of the day, if it's 6-6, he believed that he would be a favorite in Rapid. Again, it's about winning the match. And I think Magnus counts his World Championship victories, and at the end of the day, he will be happy to collect it, even if it's decided in Blitz.
Well, we want to thank you so much, Garry, for joining us. What a wonderful conversation. Sorry that the game wasn't as thrilling as Game 10.
Okay, so I'll see you guys at the 26th, yes, and then I'm sure that's by the time we'll meet on the 26th, the game will not be at the final stage, just with opposite color bishops.
I agree with your prediction on that, Garry. I think we're going to have another wild one for Game 12, so we can't wait for you to join us then. Thank you so much, and see you on Monday, Championship Monday.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Garry.
Garry. Thank you very much. Maurice, although Fabi has been thinking, it really looks horribly boring. I mean, this is really, really sad, because we have this great player, Garry Kasparov, coming to join us. We want to test him and show us some really great variations. And we're bishops of opposite colors.
Wait, you're talking?
That's it.
Somebody's talking? Wait. Sorry, I fell asleep there for a minute.
That's it for Fabi. For Fabi fans, this is good news.
Oh, it's great news.
It is. Well,
but for chess fans, not talking about Fabi fans or Magnus fans. For
Right.
chess fans, this is not what we paid our money for. Oh, sorry, we didn't pay anything for this.
Right.
Even so, we showed up early this morning, excited about Game 11. There was going to be punches, someone duck and dodge. Hit him! Wait a minute. What do you mean that they're like standing on the other side of the ring going, hey, how you doing? As you put it, Yaz, throwing marshmallows from 50 feet.
Yeah.
Here's another. Does this hurt?
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay. Let's
I
try this
got
one.
you with that one.
Oh, man. I mean, this is just snooze fest, this game. Easy liquidation, no tension. Again, Magnus is definitely trying to win the match. That's clear. He's not trying to lose the match in the opening. That's clear. He needs to make a draw tomorrow, at least. Yeah. He could still win, but expectation is that he's going to come under pressure from Fabi. There's going to be some opening prep. Fabi has shown that in the last 2 games. He wants to sharpen the game. He wants to sharpen the battle. Will he overpress? Magnus might be doing it Aikido style. You come at me too much because you feel you need to win this game, and I will punish you for overpressing. That could be another part of his strategy. So really, the situation favors him going forward. Likely big draw window with the black pieces, and then he might be able to just take it all in the rapid. 4 rapid games against the #1 consensus best player on the planet in rapid. You got to beat me in a 4-game rapid match? Good luck with that. So he is looking at these rules and saying, and if we do rapid, then we play blitz games where I'm even better than you, even further ahead than you are. So all these numbers right here, his team, maybe even if Magnus said, but I want to beat him in the Classical, his team said, but you would own him in the tiebreak. Why bother? I mean, look at these numbers. #1 in the world in a rapid versus #10 in the world. That's an edge. May not seem that much, but look at the blitz difference. #1 versus #18 in the world. I mean, if you might be a Fabi fan, but if I told you, let's bet the house, you say, take my chips over here, please. Hello, we know who the favorite is here. So that's what you got to look at as Magnus's key strategy moving forward.
That's true. Grishuk put the odds at for tomorrow's game. He had some interesting odds that he posted.
For Monday's game, you mean?
For Monday's game. Monday's game, yeah. He said on Just 24 that it's 22% Fabi win, 18% Magnus win, 60% a draw. What do you think of that? That's obviously, that sounds like a high decisive percentage considering what we've seen so far.
Right.
You think there's a 40% chance that because of greater risks tomorrow, there's going to be blood on the board?
Well, actually, I think he's right. And you had mentioned it. Okay, if I said to Fabi a month ago, okay, you're going to really study and you're preparing for this match. Fabi is going to be a great match. It's really, really contested. Not after 11 games, the match is tied. 5.5. It's coming down to the final Classical game, and you get white. Are you going to sign up for that right now? And he's got to say, sure. You know, I fought Magnus to a standstill. I get white in the final game. I'm close to a tiebreak where I understand I'm an underdog, but he's got to be happy with his current situation.
Fabi has to be happy.
I think he has to be elated.
Oh, yeah, compared to the beginning of the match.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, he is down a pawn right now, by the way. Let's just make that point. He did lose his pawn.
Why did he do this?
He jettisoned. He just went into A3, King F8, Bishop C7, B5, Bishop D6 check. I think he thinks that he's got an easy draw in this position. Bishop takes pawn here, H5, King to E3, and I believe King D7 was the last move played. It is a 3 against 2 on this side, but no real progress there. It's impossible to create a pass pawn on this side of the board with this 3 against 3. So as long as his king is over here, he's going to be blockading the pawn. So he's decided very practically. He didn't have to go for this inferior position, but he's decided from a practical standpoint, this is a draw.
It's still a dread draw.
Dead draw. He's going to make it just a stone cold draw. Bring the king to this side, and you can't even bother you can't do any pawn formation construction to bother this once this pawn hits G6. That's going to be simply impossible to do. So everything that happens here will be trades of pawns. You can't create a pass pawn in some weird way. Nothing. There's no way to make this 3 overcome this 3 with this bishop sitting guarding this F7 point. So as long as the king stays here, this should just be a clean draw.
Can Magnus try in this position, Maurice, the one you've got F3, G4, and try to get it past H-pawn? Yeah.
Yes.
Like F3, G6. Go ahead, play G6 and G4.
G4.
And here you shouldn't be taking,
Exactly.
I guess.
Exactly. I mean, how do you, even here, how do you break down the position? Because your F3 pawn will always be a problem, right? So what is your plan if I just sit still? I'm
No
gonna play,
idea.
okay. All right.
Yeah, I was just saying
Sooner or
that
later, this bishop will harass this pawn as your
Right.
king tries to. Although, let's say I win this. Let's try a couple of moves. I'm going to play for
Okay.
black. King C6. King. Oh, I've just lost.
Well, you don't want to hang your bishop.
I don't want to
dude.
hit my bishop. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so King C6, Bishop F8. Let's play King back to D7. King
Right.
F4. Let's play King back to C6, and let's take King here.
And
Bishop E2 takes here.
By far, you really help White a lot.
Yeah,
by even allowing him a past H pawn.
Exactly. So
Right.
So what is this position about? Because King G5 now, he is trying to get this pawn
To H6.
He's going to get here somewhere, and your king in the meantime, unfortunately for you,
Yeah.
this position is not so easy because this king is going to pick this one off.
Gotcha.
And it should be liquidation on this side, right? So let's play some
Right.
moves like this one, this one, this one. Ooh, I look like I'm fast. King here.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh wait, there is a way. There's this one.
What?
We have to be mindful because C4. Well, how can this be right? If I take C4,
King takes A3.
takes A3.
King B4. C5, King B4.
C5 is King B4, and
That's weird.
that is. But wait, because you do have to worry about
Yeah.
this pawn. But is there Oh, I have this move. No, according to I don't have that move.
Well, this is cool. Is there C6 and King F5?
Oh, I have this
King
move.
F4, yeah.
I have this move. Yeah,
Right.
to push the king this way.
To hit the bishop and force the bishop to decide which diagonal to defend.
Yeah.
Right, and now
Right.
the trouble starts. Yeah, so
Okay,
somehow we
okay.
can lose this position if we construct it the wrong way. It is
Right.
possible to lose this position, but
That
was
took a big effort
That
to
was a lot
lose.
of that was a lot of help. Yeah, we
Yeah, yeah.
definitely helped White as much as possible to get to that situation. But as a matter of fact, when he first got to F4 in the line, when the pawn was on G4, when he first got to F4, we should have played Bishop E2. Now that
Yeah,
I'm
King
thinking back
F4,
at it.
Bishop
King
E2.
F4, yeah. Once that Bishop E2, I'd have to create it again. King D7. You played
Well,
F3.
it was F3, King C6,
King
Bishop
here,
F8,
Bishop here,
G6,
G4,
G4,
King back,
and then you went King F4.
King F4, and now play this one.
Right. That was keeping me honest. I can't step
Right.
to the
You can't just
G5
go like
square.
this and do this because of that.
Right.
And that's how you just stop all this down.
Yeah, that's
So
shutting
that's
it
easy
down.
enough to hold this position.
So Jennifer, there's no draw before 30 moves, but you reckon a draw is in the offing here? A draw offer is in the offing?
No, I don't think so. I predicted it'll go a little longer. Yeah.
You for first time control, 40 moves? Because I
Yeah,
really
that's
don't.
my prediction.
I mean, because what we've just seen with Maurice, I mean, White even playing a poor version, you got no chances of winning.
True, but haven't they played? I feel like they played some positions kind of out. just
Well,
to-
there was that bishops where that bishop ending of opposite color where Magnus
Yeah.
had two pass pawns.
that's what I was thinking
But
of.
so did Fabi, and then Fabi just waited. Magnus played like 12 moves, moved his king around, said, okay, I got nothing.
yeah, I predict something
Right.
similar to that. They'll actually
Okay.
play it out to like 45, 50 moves.
Okay, because
What do you
again,
think? Do you think they're just going to shake hands?
I really do think so. I
Okay.
think I'm seeing G7,
Well,
G6.
you were right about the opening today, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's see if you're right about the end game.
Well, I'm seeing G6, I'm seeing King C6, and then I'm seeing that Black is just waiting. You can never move with your king up to the G5 square because you'll leave your king side pawns exposed. And I'm thinking about game 10 where Fabiano was a pawn up in a rook ending, rook and 3 versus rook and 2, politely offered a draw from the better position, and Magnus said sure. And I think this is just one of those where it's not even close. Maurice, over to you.
Let's take a look at the Women's World Championship match to see
Sure.
how they ended up with all the similar draws as well first, let's start with this game. Sorry, I went to the second one before. Let me just get this right. Why does it keep going to 6.6? Like, it doesn't want to show me the draw from 6.5. There we go, finally. All right. So this end game, which looks a lot richer than the one we're looking at now, but an opposite color bishop ending, as you see here. This was the first rapid game that they played, and it ended up in this situation: king g3, bishop f5, king g2, and they repeated and got this draw. No way to break through, opposite colored bishop. Pawns on the other colors, you see, that just was not possible to make any progress. So this was their first rapid game that ended in a draw. The second rapid game, which are, looks like my fingers are small enough. All right, we jump to another position, and look at that. Opposite colored bishops in the second rapid game, despite white being up a pawn, unable to overcome. Her opponent was Katerina Lagno here because it's just opposite colored bishops, and we know unless you have other advantages, you're not going to be able to make any kind of hay, because you need a pass pawn on the other side, or at least have the pawn. If you get an extra pawn, you need to be separated by 2 files. That's the book concept. You need the separation so that the king and the bishop cannot guard both pawns by themselves or together as a unit. By separating them, then one is forced to guard one pawn, and then the other you just overwhelm. So this was a second draw, bishop opposite colors. 2 games in a row we had that. Now the third game, now we're at the 10+10. And this game was critical because it was the first win that appeared in the tiebreak. And if we go down to the critical moment, it was here. Take a look at this one. Sharp opening play led to this position. White was Katerina Lagno, black was Ju Jun. And all she had to do here, Katerina, was play bishop takes b2, and we'd have an opposite colored bishop position again for the third game in a row, and it would be an easy draw, and then she would fight it out in the fourth game. She did have black. She would have black in the fourth game, guaranteed. So instead, she said, you know what, I got the 2 bishops. I don't want to draw. Why should I trade opposite colored bishop? And made this mistake, bishop f1, trying to maintain the 2 bishops, and overlooked this forward-thinking move, knight d1, and all of a sudden she looked and realized, oh no, I'm losing my f2 pawn, and bishop e3 doesn't help because a bishop takes on e3, and then knight captures. That knight gets out, by the way, I did check, and you'll have a knight and extra pawn against a bishop. That's not an ending you want to play in blitz. She kept playing. She had her drawing chances even then, but she didn't defend very well, ended up losing this game. Ouch. And cost her the first game of the 10+10. Now she had to win the final game, and pulling this one up, she got into this position where no advantage for either side, even material, nothing to play for, and in a situation where she was desperate trying to win, she made a horrific blunder, queen g6, and after knight takes g6, that's all she wrote. 2 games down for the match. Match was over, and Ju Jun remained champion. 2018 champion twice. Make that squared because she won back in May and again in November. Rightful reigning champ and still the champ. Ju Jun, Grandmaster from China. She has had a fantastic year. Add the fact that she won the gold medal in the Olympics. The gold.
Oh, costing you.
As the best performer for the women in the Olympics. And she captained the Chinese women to that gold medal, which they joined their fellow countrymen who won in the open section. So China has a lot to cheer for this year on the tournament circuit. Ju Jun, once again, the deserving champion for 2018.
Absolutely.
And if you haven't gotten enough of London, guys, we've got another event coming up that we're going to be doing exclusive commentary for. 11th to 17th in December is the London Chess Classic, the Grand Chess Tour Finals. We have 2 Americans in the final, Hikaru Nakamura and Fabiano Caruana, who could be the world champion as he plays for the first Grand Chess Tour title with this finale structure. Right. So this will be the first year that we have qualifiers into the final. In addition to Fabi and Hikaru, there is Levon and Maxime, who will also be playing a match.
Yeah, and those will be the semifinalists. The 2 Americans match up in the semifinal. So there will be an American in the final. And I think after all of Hikaru's comments about who he's predicting this World Championship. I think Fabiano is really going to want to beat him badly. So I'm really looking for that London Grand Chess Tour final.
I think he doesn't even know about what he was saying during the match, but after the match, people will probably let him know.
He's going to play catch-up. He's going to play catch-up
If people don't tell him, you can be sure I'm going to ask him.
Yeah, exactly.
When I get to London and do a little pre-match trash-talking questions there.
Right.
We definitely want to. MVL and Levon are good buddies. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's hard to get them to say bad things about each other, but they want to bash each other's head in, especially Levon. He's always said, it's always good to beat your friends. Right. It's
Sad
a nice
thing.
feeling.
Yeah.
But Fabian and Nakamura, no love lost there. And I think that we will certainly want to hear from Fabi, his feelings on the fact that his countryman was predicting the other guy to win.
Well, predicting is okay.
Well,
a lot of people,
rooting,
a lot of
rooting,
Americans,
rooting. He said, rooting for the other guy to win.
Yeah,
I actually like what Levon was asked during this World Cup. So in the World Cup finals, he's playing MVL. And they said to Levon, well, gee, Levon, you're playing your really good friend MVL. How do you feel about it? And he says, what do you mean? I hate him. I hate them all. I want to beat them all. Tongue in cheek, of course, but nice. As you were giving us a retrospective of the Women's World Championship, I did want to mention once again that Game 10 was great. And I'd just like to relive a couple of moments.
Please, Yasser, save us.
From the bishops of opposite color position we're currently suffering through in Game 11.
Bring it up. Yeah, this was one of the most exciting games I've ever called live. I mean, obviously it's hard to say how much that was due to the stakes, but I do think it was actually the most exciting game I've ever called live.
And there were just a couple of moments that we really didn't get a chance to get into. But given the fact that I had a free day and I could just look at it at my leisure, I was like, wow, here, a crucial position. We had Vichy on the line. And this was where G2, G3 was essayed by Fabi, because he saw that after this last move, Queen G5 by the world champion, with the idea of a rover, rook up, and over to the king side, whether it be the h6 square or the g6 square, White's king was going to come under considerable pressure. Fabi wanted to shut down the attack with g3. Vichy Anand, who was on the line, said, go ahead, call his bluff. Bishop takes b5, rook up, rook over, and drop your bishop back. You can do it, Fabi. Grab the pawn.
There was a line, by the way, we should point out that was really interesting there. Continue in that variation.
Which one is that?
The bishop b5, yeah.
Bishop takes b5. Okay, sorry. Bishop takes b5.
Rook f6.
Rook f6, rook e1.
Rook e1, rook g8.
Rook g6.
G6, sorry.
Yeah, bishop f1.
Bishop f1, and now bishop to g4.
Right, bishop to g4.
And this is something that he might have worried about, the move f3.
Yes.
And takes.
Yes.
And pawn takes is possible.
Yes.
A rook takes is also possible. A pawn takes is possible because bishop f3 looks like it's winning potentially, but that bishop on g1 guards the g8, the g1 square. The bishop on b6 guards the g1 square. Excuse me, I'll get my algebraic notation right in a second. Guards that square, and maybe that could have been something you overlooked. His bishop sitting on that square, maybe too dangerous a position to walk into, force him to sack an exchange.
Well, you certainly don't expect the bishop that's sitting way over there on the queen side, b6, to play a crucial role in your defense on the king side. Okay, very, very crucial moment in the press conference. Fabi said here he spent so much time. He essayed the move g3, but later he explaining that, well, he regretted that he didn't also play f3. And Magnus pointed out, well, if you play f3, the intention was to play like this, and after takes queen h4, bishop takes e3, looks like you're 2 pawns up. What's the problem? You're about to play the move rook f2, completely shut down black's attack. Not so fast. Black to move. Black makes a draw with a beautiful queen sacrifice. Check. And check with the rook. Now, don't even think about trying to escape with king f2 because...
Make Jen happy.
Yeah, let's see it. Well, I like it a little bit more when it's the other way, but I'll take it.
Check and mate to White's king. White would actually have to acquiesce to a draw, a perpetual by the repetition. The next thing that really threw me off, and I didn't realize this, is that as they got into this endgame, just towards the time control right here, Fabi ended up making the time control with seconds on his clock. He was down to like final 6 seconds when he made the move 40. And I didn't realize at the time they got under this double-edged position right here that the time was such a crucial factor.
That there were some really tricky tracks.
Exactly. Now they got to this position where Magnus had just laid two incredible, juicy cheapos that he was hoping that Fabi would fall for. Fabi actually played the beautiful move Rook E1.
Unbelievable.
But it was really...
Grace under pressure, indeed.
Exactly. It was really easy to fall for this materialistic trick of queen b3 check. Now notice that black's queen, stuck in white's camp, is attacking the rook on d1. Now once you see the move c4, which not only protects the rook on d1, but also attacks black's queen, you go, oh my God, black's queen is trapped. I'm winning, until you see the move rook takes b6. And you go, oh, I'm not winning, it's a draw. Rook takes e2, rook takes b3, rook takes e4, it's a draw.
No.
Until you see the guy doesn't take your queen, he sacrifices his queen. He takes on e2, and after queen c2, Maurice, you saw this one. You were the first
rook b2.
Rook b2, baby. And white loses.
Because after queen a4...
okay, so yeah,
after
queen
a4, you just take and...
I take and take on f2. That's right. Queen and take this pawn, and I've got two
it's just
rooks.
Overwhelming, indeed.
And I've got a passer. Okay.
So basically, we're gaining a tempo by playing rook b2 because that's where we want our rook.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there was another
I
nasty
heard,
cheapo.
Speaking of women's world champions or the top women's player in history, I heard that Judith was, when analyzing this position, she was having trouble taking the white side.
She didn't want to play white. She wanted to play black.
And she spotted a lot of these traps
exactly
on the board.
Now, another easy trap to fall for, which Fabi avoided, grace under pressure, as you said, was queen d4. Defending the rook on b2 and the rook on d1. And you think, okay, e3, c4, and once again, black's queen is trapped. Fabi's winning, right? Oops, not until you see this capture, leaving the queen on pre.
Not only that, but allowing rook takes e2 and queen d5 check.
Yeah, rook e2, queen d5 check, look at that, rooks galore hanging. Oops, two pass pawns on the 7th rank. f3 takes e2.
A princess party.
What a debacle that would have been.
That is amazing. Oh my God.
We missed that because the players were in time trouble
were in time pressure,
and we didn't catch up. And once I reflected on all of these great lines, I thought to myself, Fabi played an unbelievable game.
Well, both of them. I mean, I think the fact that Magnus saw all these tricks, Fabi rebutted all of them. It's truly astonishing. It really, like as Garry said, those last 10 moves. The fact that you can play such great moves, the computer's top choices, under so much time pressure and mental pressure, it makes you kind of wonder when people are saying, oh, they're going to crack under the nerves. To the contrary, it seems like they're actually playing like superhuman in some ways.
I know, it's crazy.
So the opposite can easily happen, and that's why we see so many draws.
And I want to give a big shout out to MVL for his annotations at chess.com and alerting me to some of these lines. That was really, really, really pretty.
I'm sure MVL was also having fun with black.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Over to you, Maurice. What has happened in this current game 11? Are you, like me, expecting a draw offer shortly?
I think
Maurice.
Why are you asking me about this game?
Wake
you
up.
keep asking me about this game.
Wake up.
I mean, this game is draw. This is just. I love those lines, though. Could we go back to 48 hours ago?
Yeah, exactly.
Could we start talking about that stuff? Because this here is just nothing going
Snoozeville.
on. I mean, it's just. They already know. They're making moves, but they already know. Especially since White is about to be forced to put all these pawns on dark squares. That's going to happen because he just can't leave this pawn alone. His king is tethered to it as this bishop keeps harassing it first from d1. Now it's going to go to f5 and do that. And now he's decided to play the move c4, which will create liquidation on this side for sure. Yeah. And once that happens, and this pawn is still going to come under fire, and his king is going to have to sit there. Oh, look at that. He actually played this way. Doesn't matter because he can leave his king here on d4, and the trade could happen. Doesn't matter how you play this. The queen side will be liquidated, and you cannot make that pass pawn happen on this side with any kind of security. This is just drawn. This is just drawn. You can keep it exciting. They're making moves now to figure out how do we make this draw. They might even get to move 50, to be frank. They might even get to move 50 and say, well, we didn't play a 30-move draw. It wasn't like that. What are you complaining about?
Right.
Yeah, yes, you did. You played a 20-move draw. Don't even try it. We see what happened here.
But here's a question for you guys. If you're a reporter, what question do you ask Magnus today? Because it's hard, right? I mean, after what he said, we were joking about what he said to the reporter who asked him, at what point did you realize it was drawn? And he's like, when it was a draw?
Yeah. I always knew it was a draw.
I dare you to ask him a question about this because I know he's disappointed, yes.
Of course.
Very. And Jonathan Tisdall actually tweeted that if you were there on the scene, some people might think that, Magnus is trying to draw out to the tiebreak, but he says, no. This really is looking like Magnus is doing an NYC and forgetting he has a black to survive, but doing an NYC meaning trying to draw the last two games to get
New York City,
to tiebreak against Karyakin.
Yeah.
But from seeing his face, I would say that there's some combination of bad prep, bad nerves, and a bad decision. Or maybe the bad was only about the bad prep, but Magnus not happy.
No. By the way, that would be the question. That would be the
prep.
question. Not the bad prep. The question, although you don't want to irritate the guy, but that's the real question that you should be asking is
why after 6 months you have a solution or an antidote to the Petrov?
He's like, you try.
That's even worse than what I was going to say.
Well, you got to be direct. I mean,
That's a good. You asked that, okay?
Yeah, I'll ask it.
When I ask the direct questions, I get in trouble. But no, the question I was saying was, are you now in a phase as you were in the last match of trying to draw out the last two games?
No. I think that question is going to get you in more trouble than Yaz is.
Okay, well, but that's
He's going to give you the death stare. Because how can it be? The answer must be no, because he knows that Fabi is going to go for it with white tomorrow. He knows he's going to be under pressure.
Of course.
So it's like it's impossible for the answer to be yes.
Right.
I can't see a logical universe in which Magnus could ever think that it was a good idea to draw this game with white. And then in the next game, be up against the wall.
Suffer a little bit. What's up with that?
I mean, maybe it happens, it happens, and that's unfortunate, but there's no way that was his intention. Let me just trade off the pieces and draw with white.
Agreed.
That would be dumb.
I agreed wholeheartedly, Jennifer. Maurice, I thought that you and Garry were having a very interesting exchange where Garry was actually making the suggestion at 28 years old that Magnus is a little bit tapped out, that he doesn't have enough energy, original ideas, the competition's catching up to him.
I think he also was saying has trended for so long in what has made him successful that he's not really almost incapable of flexibly changing. Right. And that I found very surprising to me because 28 does not seem... Even if you've been successful since 2010, because he said, he's been successful for the last 8 years, almost a decade. He's been at the top, this has worked. So because all this has worked, I'm just not going to change that. I'm not comfortable enough trying to change. It seems to me that he could spend the next year and be willing even to let go of the reins for a little while. I'm not going to be number one maybe for a while because I'm going to maybe have some bad results, right? Change up my open. Garry himself, one of the great quotes I've heard him say, you're becoming a better chess player when you change your openings.
Right. You challenge yourself.
Challenge yourself. Are you saying that because he's been so successful, that there's a part of Magnus that's simply unwilling to challenge himself and try to do something afresh, even if it means losing a few games, looking like a less invincible self, but in a year from now, having grown so much, and now suddenly adding this variety to his style. I mean, the guy's a freaking genius. Let's get it straight.
Right.
He's so stuck in what he's done that he can't change. I mean, Garry knows more than we do about the top level chess. I just found that really surprising.
It was exciting because when I listened to Garry talk about it, it felt like it's destiny for Fabiano Caruana to win. It feels like if this was a movie, Fabi's going to win tomorrow.
Right.
Or even, dare I say, win in the
Wait, how'd
tiebreak.
you get that?
Because the way Garry was talking, it sounded like, an arc, a story. But as we know, chess is not a movie. And a lot of it's about the odds and the math and the probabilities as well when you look at the sport, as Garry said. So,
Exactly.
But the way he was talking, it was like, what's going to happen? Like if this was a Rocky series,
Yeah.
Fabi would win this game,
Right.
last game, and then there would be Magnus, the sequel,
Yeah.
where it's Magnus 2.0, and he plays
Coming back stronger than
he's
he
got
ever played in his life.
maybe all the same grinding skills, but a little bit more aggressive in some of the openings.
Right.
So like when I was hearing him talk, I was like projecting the next 10 years, and Fabi world champion, Magnus comes back stronger.
Yeah. Wow.
Maybe they play in America. It got my imagination activated.
Right. I just found it really remarkable for myself when I heard Maurice and Garry talking about this 28-year-old as being this wily old veteran who's a little bit tapped out of ideas, and
That's incredible.
I just thought, wait a minute. Why isn't he going to go on and have another, brilliant career like you, Garry, did? Dominated chess for 20 years. I thought that maybe he will.
Maybe he needs to lose in order to
to really appreciate what he's got.
It's amazing. Every story for you, Jen, ends up with Fabi winning somehow.
She's a team member.
I mean,
boy.
talk about a team player there, boy. Yeah. Well, I really believe in challenging oneself, in making changes, constantly making changes, never resting on your laurels. Do what is successful, but even when you're successful, look for ways to grow. And it's very hard for me to believe that Magnus just is simply anti-change and thinks that if he slips a little bit and is not number one anymore, that's going to matter so much. It's going to be the end of the world. And that he's going to keep doing what he's been doing when in all the face of it says he now has been caught by Fabi. Look at their rating. They're 3 points apart.
Right.
Isn't he, by the way, losing rating points with all these draws? Maybe fraction.
I think it was Grandmaster Smerdon who said that if there was a 300-game match and they drew all of them, Fabi would overtake Magnus on rating.
By 4 points.
Well, yeah, because he's supposed to go +1 after 300 games, according to Tony Rich's calculations. So
it's a fraction. It's like
they would flip-flop at that point.
But is that possible?
I didn't realize that's how the FIDE rating system works.
A third of a rating point right now.
Is he always gaining rating no matter what?
No, but it's a tiny fraction.
It would be something
like a tiny fraction.
I think you wouldn't even see it on the number list because it would be like 25-34, and they're both equal at 25-34, something like that.
Right.
Because it would be 25-34.02 versus 0.01, something that minuscule. But he's been caught by Fabi in terms of performance.
That's right.
Shaq is right behind him. I mean, Durov is right there. Ding Liren is waving. Hey, guess what, guys? I'm right in the next door. I'm coming. It used to be that I was down the block around the corner. Now I'm close. And I'm about to open the gate. Watch out. So he's seen that, and he's got to be thinking, what do I need to do to become, to be even more enlivened by the game, fresh game? Do I need to add some spark, some more dynamic openings, or do I need to just sit and do what I've been doing and try to do it incrementally better? I'm a proponent of change is good. Change is the right thing to do. It just sparks so much new energy, makes you embrace a new challenge, freshens the mind, allows for growth. That's what I believe in, and I find it hard to believe and I believe in it at 28, 38, 48, 50, you name it. Keep going. Change is good. Don't just sit down and get old. 28 is old?
Yeah, is that
no
the new,
way? Come on, what?
Is that the new
28
old?
is the new ancient?
What?
No way. Come on.
Exactly. There's some marvelous quote by Woody Allen that goes like that: "If you're not challenging yourself, you're remaining too often in your comfort zone." It's something like that. That you've got to be able to challenge yourself. By the way, I think we're going to go on break, Jen, because I'm just looking at this game. I don't see a draw offer being made in the
like I
next
was right.
10, 15 moves. You were definitely right. Stand corrected.
Quick break, though, because...
we'll take a quick break as we wait the conclusion of Game 11 of the World Chess Championship.
See you soon.
St. Louis University is celebrating its 200th anniversary. Offering world-class education in the heart of St. Louis, SLU attracts students and professors from around the globe. In 2015, SLU partnered with the St. Louis Chess Club to start a top-tiered collegiate chess team. On the very first year of the team's inception, SLU obtained second best university at the Pan American Intercollegiate Chess Championships. Higher purpose, greater good. St. Louis University.
A moment comes in chess when you need to test yourself at a different level. Chess 24 Premium offers the tools that you need to reach your maximum potential. From hundreds of interactive video lessons to becoming part of the Chess 24 community. You can analyze with friends or coach your students live. You get 24/7 coverage of chess news and events, access to premium analysis and commentary, and the chance to interact with grandmasters and other top players and coaches. Get advice from the best and even challenge them to a battle. Be the best chess player you can be. It's time to level up your game with Chess 24 Premium membership.
Healthcare in America is changing, evolving, and we're helping lead the transformation. Ascension is made up of physicians and other caregivers called to deliver compassionate, personalized care for all. As one of the largest providers of care in the country, our patients benefit from collaboration between hospitals, medical practices, and healthcare innovators nationwide. Ascension's faith-based heritage means we have a moral obligation to serve everyone, especially those who are struggling. Last year, we provided almost $2 billion in care for people living in poverty and for programs to help them. Whether it's in a hospital, a neighborhood clinic, a senior living facility, or at home, Ascension's care providers value every aspect of our patients' lives and health. We listen with respect to ensure every person we serve gets the right care for them. Personalized, compassionate, that's Ascension.
back to our World Championship coverage of Carlsen Caruana. We're in Game 11, and it looks like we have another draw, Yaz, as expected. Magnus didn't get anything today.
He didn't get anything, and it was his final white in the classical portion of the match. It means there is one game remaining with the match tied 5.5, 5.5, and in that final game, which will be played on Monday, Jennifer, it will be the challenger, Fabiano, with the white pieces. And the winner wins, or we're going to have a tiebreak.
Oh my God, I am looking so much forward to it, Yaz, especially the heat that Fabi and his team has brought in the last two whites. I mean, you got to figure Magnus's next two evenings might not be too pleasant.
Not as easy as it was in New York City when he had the white pieces in the final game, because he will be up against it. And that preparation, Maurice, you got to give the preparation edge to Fabi.
Absolutely. That's been the case basically the entire match. It's clear who the better prepared player has been as far as the opening is concerned, but openings don't win games. I mean, unless you come up with a novelty to just bust the guy and it's completely over, you still got to finish him off. And Magnus has shown to be incredibly resilient, truly a defensive player, and been able to show that, hey, I can draw. I can still make a draw even if you get good positions. So Fabi's going to have to play with elan, with energy, with determination. And will he even play with that R word? That four-letter word to him has been risk. Mm-hmm. Will he go for it the way he could have gone for it in the last game, taking on B5 and taking a chance? Here, we've seen him so far just hesitate in some games where we really felt like, hey, he could press here. He's just been a little bit of hesitation. But it's one game for the money. I mean, one game, you get white. If you had said to Fabiano before this match started, you get one game, you get white, you win the whole thing. I think he would have signed up for that against Magnus. He has not been really tested with the black pieces. His team right now can be patting themselves on the back because they did the job. They weathered all storms with white. Well, storms. Maybe more like a mild breeze blowing because he's been able to show his stuff with black every single game, essentially holding his own. Now it's time to get it done as we have a score of 5.5, 5.5 after 11. No wins. 11 draws to start a world championship. That is a record by far. Maybe one we will not see again for a long time. Will he be able to deliver it in the last game? Or will Magnus show that he can deliver as well? As he's won last games to win matches. By the way, let's make a good point about that. Magnus is, after all, the world champion.
Maurice, if you just pull up the final part of Game 11, because Magnus did set certain traps just at the final stages, but Fabi avoided the tricks. Go ahead and show us what were some of the tricks that Magnus had laid, but were ineffective.
Well, I know you were really excited about this position.
I know. We had it on
Well, I was trying to take a nap. You were busy still talking about this game. But yes, bishop e2, king e7, bishop to b3, king f6, bishop a2. And he played this move f5.
Right.
f5, trying to sacrifice his pawn so he can at least get his h-pawn rolling down the board. And after bishop to b1.
Which was a serious danger.
Right. He temporized even one more move and said, go ahead, take with your bishop. You want to take with the pawn, take with the bishop. Well, of course, bishop takes would walk into the move h5, and suddenly that you cannot capture. There goes your bishop in this position, and the pawn will get to h6, and then all of Norway would be smiling at that little trick. But of course, Fabi was just too cool for school, played bishop to c2 and said, nothing's changing here. You've got nothing. You know, I know you've got nothing. This is just a draw.
And then the whole point is, if Magnus had continued with the move king takes f7, then you can play bishop takes f5 because there's no h5 trick. You're not tickling the bishop.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I know
what it was all about.
You know, I love how you get excited about little nuances like that. Yeah.
Hey, man, I live for those moments when I can trick my opponent. These guys are just too good, Maurice. They see all the tricks.
I think that a lot of people are too good for that.
Those tricks, yeah.
Tricks.
But those last tricks in the game 10, man, not too many people.
No.
With seconds on their clock. All
different.
avoiding queen b3 check, avoiding queen d4. I think, oh God, which one's easier to miss, Yaz?
Oh, that was so good.
The
queen b3
is
check.
harder. That's harder.
The queen b3 check followed by C4. That is so... Oh, that's so awesomely bad. I mean, to fall for that trap, because it looks like you're winning. You just trapped the guy's
I like that
queen.
one. I like that one. And the only thing I can say that might have tipped Fabi off is Magnus not missing queen b3 and c4.
Exactly.
So I'm going to keep going.
You're the math girl. Work it out for us. What should Fabi do for game 12? And again, we're going to have a free day, and then it's Championship Monday.
Play e4. He's been getting tons out of these Sveshnikov Sicilians. I think what Team Fabi is showing that the Sveshnikov Sicilian is very rich for white.
Yes.
And we have so many targets, right? So it's not just like this linear thing where we can't find deviations. They found 2 deviations that gave white a big edge. I'm scared if I'm Magnus
Bishop
against the Sicilian.
D2 and B4. Those are the deviations you're talking
Somehow
about.
I feel like there's a number 3 in there somewhere.
There's a number 3 in there.
And that might cause Maggie to switch to double king pawn, but that has some perils of its own because that's the stuff that...
There's no information.
That, you have no idea what's going to happen. And that kind of excites me as well. Although I'd actually prefer to see another Sicilian. I'm also kind of like curious about this like mini match that we have one game in double king pawn after the 5 Sicilians.
Right.
What's your prediction?
Well, for me, I was really surprised at the Sveshnikov the second time around. I thought that Magnus was seriously scared that first time with Bishop D2 and A5. So I thought he was going to be chased into the double king pawn defenses. I didn't think that Fabi was going to get the second shot that he did get. And again, he got a nice advantage. Something that Garry said, that Magnus has a certain modus operandi. And his modus operandi is not going for those all-or-nothing attacks, which do come from that particular line of Sveshnikov. I would be chased into the double king pawn, but maybe we'll see the Sveshnikov again. Maurice, jump in. What's your prediction for game 12?
Double king pawns. I don't think he wants to see any more novelties dropped on him in those lines. It's clear that Fabi has stuff. There's gold in them, their hills. He came up with one with Bishop D2, then he plays B4. He's enlivening the play in such a way that you're really asking for it to go back into some sharp line with the black pieces where a draw is enough for you to go into a very advantageous tiebreak. So I see him going either double. I see him leaving the Sicilian. That's what I will say. I think he has a third defense waiting just in case in his pocket. So he may not be E4, E5. I think he has a third defense waiting somewhere in the wings, which he might throw out. It might be the Shaka for the last game.
None of the above by Maurice.
So maybe that's something in there as well.
You're taking
but
the field.
But I think that I would. But what I will say is I think he's leaving the Sicilian. I think it's time to put that one to rest because it was just too dangerous. Both of them could have really cost him the match.
Right.
And so it's best that he ducks out of there and then take his chances in the tiebreak where he will be favored.
Well, if he could get to the tiebreak, I think he would be very
Sign me
happy
right up.
signing. Yeah, as we saw in New York City. Again, our congratulations to Ju Wenjun. A phenomenal performance. Just great, great stuff by the Women's World Champion as she defends her title. It's been championship today in chess, Jennifer. We've witnessed 2 great players going toe-to-toe. Neither man can get the edge over
Not
the
yet,
other.
but I think the biggest chance for a decisive game is the last one. Okay, that's pretty easy to say.
Well done, well done. I'm so
the
impressed.
biggest chance, but
Yeah.
and if it's not, we'll be back on Wednesday. But first, Championship Monday. I have never been this excited to see a chess game,
Right.
and I've been pretty excited to see chess games before. So join us, cancel your Monday, extend that Thanksgiving weekend one more day, or explain to your boss that you must work with 2 monitors.
Exactly.
Or maybe 3 or 4.
Right.
The coverage begins at 9 a.m. local here in St. Louis, which is actually the challenger, Fabiano Caruana's home. Join us for Game 12. Will it end on Monday?
Thank you for sharing your Thanksgiving weekend with us.